All right, all right. Greetings. Welcome. We're going live. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. The topic of this video is going to be redemption education, why some procedures don't work. Question mark. First, as usual, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information. These are simply my opinions and they do not represent the political views of any affiliates, etc. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, getting into the topic, I know it's been a minute. First of all, I want to make a special acknowledgement and thank you to all my subscribers, those who've been loyal, who continue to stay loyal, that have continued to rock with me throughout the years, that stuck with me through the trenches. Big shout out to you. I appreciate you. Also, I want to give a special acknowledgement to Currency 365 and his crew. I did receive what I received recently, and I want to thank you and all those that participated in that. By the way, I've said this previously in a previous video. I'm going to put Currency 365 and several others in a special category down the road, God willing, inshallah. If my ship sails through, things come through for me, they'll have a direct connect to me. By the way, a lifetime membership access, etc., perks and benefits, stuff like that, privately, things that I don't normally discuss over here. With that being said, if you check the description box, it'll have the information where you want to follow me on social media, if you want to donate to the channel, etc. Those things should be in the description box. Serious inquiries only, for consult, stuff like that. So now to get into the topic, I wanted to discuss redemption processes. I see there's a stampede of people, a lot of newbies who are new to this type of information. And as I've said before previously, I'm at a certain level in this. I have been for quite some time as I'm attempting to exit the matrix. I've been in this actually for quite a number of years, quite a while. Some may not be aware. I'm just going over this again. Some may already know. As I mentioned this from time to time, I've been studying this information officially since 2004. And I've been able to see throughout the years things that have changed, what the gatekeepers have done, the ruling class, elite, the fraudsters, some call banksters, the ones that are working for evil, who don't have the general public's best interest at heart. That's who I'm referring to. And I've gone over documentaries to validate this. I recommend, just in my opinion, you thoroughly research before you make a assessment. If you feel if what I'm saying is inaccurate, I recommend you, in my opinion, once again, check out Money Masters documentary. You should still be able to watch that free on YouTube if they haven't removed it. Monopoly Men, it's another good documentary. Ring of Power, Empire of the City. Check out Ring of Power, Empire of the City. Some of the old Zeitgeist films, too, by the way, I forget about, by the way. And minus, you could say, doesn't mean you have to necessarily co-sign or agree, but mainly they'll show examples, things, topics that will pique your interest and provide more validation. These are several documentaries that all complement one another in different ways, by the way, to help your journey and waking up to the truth and trying to learn about redemption education, freedom, status correction, whatever label people want to give it. These types of things, they're all related and will help you gather understanding, especially, and this is going to be part of the topic I should have time to go into, the reason why some procedures don't work, why people have a hard time. I wanted to address those things in this particular topic of this video. And I see this as a major major public corruption. However, hopefully I can go over there's remedies, some things you can possibly do, what to look out for, maybe some do's and don'ts. One of the problems that's been reoccurring, and this has been going on for quite a number of years, to give you guys some insight, in many different jurisdictions, this is cities, different counties across the country. I'm hearing from different people. There's county recorders, even UCC offices in different states, et cetera. Also, courts are giving people a hard time filing their documentation. This is something that I really don't hear sometimes people that are very knowledgeable harp on when they fight or discuss whether certain processes, certain information work. Sometimes it's not always the people who may have something that's incorrect. Sometimes it's the county, it's the gatekeepers, it's public officials. Remember, similar to when during slavery times, remember how there were certain slaves that had freedom papers. If you've seen this, it's been put in some of the movies. And when they went certain areas that they were not liked or welcomed, there would be individuals very similar to today who would try to take their freedom papers away and try to attempt to place them back into servitude, into slavery, by the way. What you have going on today is no different. Some people have even stated that the form of slavery today is, you've heard terms like the wage slave, a form of financial slavery, involuntary servitude, which I totally agree, wholeheartedly. There's reasons why there's major wealth inequality, why there's financial literacy that is not taught to certain individuals, certain classes, certain ethnic groups. There's reasons why historically, and it's American history too. It's not critical race theory. This is not any propaganda or nothing I'm pushing. This is straight up history we go by. And some of these types of things, or even I discovered from a relative, was even taught in some textbooks I checked, by the way. It's just hidden in some of the things I'm going to discuss. There's a couple people who I'm going to refer you all to look up, to do your research. As always, I encourage everyone to do their homework into this information. It's very important, because with a lot of newbies joining, I hear people say, oh, this process doesn't work, this doesn't work. But it's important to understand what, because there's people that always say, well, if you haven't done it, then what makes you a foremost authority, or to, and I do get that where people are coming from, because you want to have validity. However, this, you have to keep in mind, this type of information when it comes to sovereignty, whether you call it status correction, redemption, it's unconventional, because it's been well hidden, by the way. It's been kept secretive by members of the ruling class elite that set this infrastructure up behind the scenes in years past. By the way, this information is also old. It goes back, but some things haven't changed. But things that have changed is the way we do commerce, the way we conduct business. You have to understand, when you go back and read even case law, the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case of, I believe it was 1938. Yes, Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case of 1938. When I first got involved in learning about this type of information, I read a lot of the white papers, or would be considered white papers, and there's different categories, different subjects that pertain to sovereignty, freedom, redemption. And the reason I use those terms, some of you all know, there's not really one term. Some people identify by different terms, and one of the reasons, because this information is unconventional. Some people just call it UCC. I've heard in the past, some people said, you study that UCC stuff. Some people call it the straw man stuff. Well, I like to try to put more context to it. Lately, in the past several years, it's been a term used a while ago. I remember it was, this terminology was used some years ago on Sonetta Studios on YouTube, one of their channels, where they interviewed, he interviewed a lawyer at the time, and asked if the status correction thing actually worked. But the problem is a lot of people, when they don't know about this information, if they've never studied this type of information before, and I'm pretty sure many of you all have come across relatives, family members, loved ones, or friends, and things that may have asked or say, hey, I've heard about that information, but sometimes they have a preconceived notion or theory about what this is. And I had to tell, for example, a friend of mine who has a friend that I know he's closer to, but he stated when he thought that I was into, he had a preconceived notion, and I had to explain to my friend, my close friend, to explain to his friend that this information, there's different groups, by the way. You can't just stereotype people and put someone in one lump sum category without having a full understanding. Where there's a saying, don't be quick to judge and hesitant to understand. You want to understand first before you judge. And even though I know there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about judge not so that ye may not be judged, but there's also a scripture that talks about that you will know them by the fruits that they bear. Things, some of you all kind of know, but to have an idea, it's better to understand the situation. And some people don't want to try to take the time out to research, to understand this type of information, because I was told this years ago when I went to sometime around middle school, we would have something called chapel on Thursdays. And it was stated to us that the person speaking at the time said he called us the microwave generation. And he said at the time, because, and I'm a Generation Xer, by the way, kind of on that borderline, he said, because you guys want things now. You guys want things quick, like a microwave, in and out, or like fast food. And to really grasp and really thoroughly have a true understanding, thoroughly. And you guys know with me, I've been told this by people that I know personally, people that are where I have the channel, people that have known me for years, have mentioned why I'm very thorough. And they stated that they like that about me. Some people I worked with in my work life didn't like that, but I said there's a reason. I can't change who I am. I'm just thorough and I'm meticulous, and I've learned it's important to be meticulous because I've caught things that other people haven't, or I've relayed information back where there's been wonderful, brilliant people, brilliant minds coming into this type of information and teaching now. As you all know, that there's numerous YouTube channels that have popped up. By the way, they're continuing. There's Telegram groups that have popped up where there's masses of people that are learning. Now a lot of people have becoming acclimated. There's still a lot of newbies. You also have people on TikTok, and I was even informed I had forgotten even a large groups on Facebook, different groups studying this type of information. I told a friend of mine he was totally oblivious to. He was unaware. And I said, he had told me a while ago he was on the fence about this information, but now he stated to me some time ago, he's admitted that he said he's not on the fence anymore. And I won't go into the reasons. That's neither here nor there for the time being, but just giving an example to go over the point I think it's very important to understand that one of the problems is, I mentioned the county recorder, UCC offices, courts across the country, in certain areas, not all, but in some places, are giving people a hard time filing their documentation. And I was informed privately many years ago, and I do apologize, I don't have the specific codes, where federally they are supposed to file certain documents that you give them. And specifically, this individual stated with the county recorder. And I was just informed privately that some county recording offices are supposed to have a miscellaneous filing section, and some of them are illegally hiding or removing this specific portal, by the way, which is very similar to, I was watching a video of a guy that's very well studied, who I highly admire, who I've never actually really mentioned that I can recall on my channel, who I was unaware of. I found out from someone else who teaches that's very knowledgeable. But this guy down the road I may be looking into paying for a class, or if he does memberships myself. There's some others out there. Of course, when I get the funds, but this guy is very well studied. He's actually been a guest on the Stu Peters show, and I'm mentioning none other than a guy by the name of David Jose. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but you may want to take notes. I discovered he has a YouTube channel, and as in the past, when I've helped people doing private consultations, I've stated if I may not know the answer, then I was able to directly help the person themselves. In many cases, everyone that I've had consultations with told me they were very appreciative, or told me even if I didn't know the specific answer, I gave them more information than they expected, or more other details, how to go about their case or their specific situation. And one lady out of California, I was able to refer her to David Jose, by the way, because some people out there, I know there's a lot of people that don't know who he is, by the way. And I know that there's people out there that have watched my channel, have been following me for a while. And it's not that I'm trying to get any credit or anything. This is not no clout chasing. I'm here to try to help people, and I have done that. And I have been told privately, I think my work I'm at a level now where I'm looking at down the road retiring soon. Maybe a reason why you guys don't see me putting out as many videos. And I'm also attempting to redo, to add to filings and things that I've done in years past to become even more bulletproof, by the way, and to make sure all my T's are crossed, my ducks are in order to the best of my ability, as I'm attempting to navigate out of the matrix, by the way. So I just wanted to share that with you all. A guy by the name of David Jose, he actually, in my opinion, has expertise in the category doing getting remedy. By the way, as I mentioned, I put a little description and the title of this video, which I didn't do that in the past, but I want to give people an idea of the topic that I cover. And I want to give, just giving credit where credit is due. I found out about David Jose from Jonah Bey, where they did on Jonah Bey's website, Jonah Bey blog spot. I had to scroll through it, and find Jonah's website was hard to find. By the way, that could be the gatekeepers of people, out there. They mess with, just like they mess with people's channels and stuff. They've tried to hide this information and mess with people's websites and things. So I was able to find it, but he did a webinar with David Jose on CPS. That stands for Child Protective Services. And I said, there appears to be a market. So a lot of people, I've been aware of this for quite a while, may need this information out there that are having CPS issues. Check out David Jose, and it's a reason why Jonah Bey, maybe they did a joint webinar a while ago, where Jonah is good in specific areas. Like, you have people that are skilled in various areas of knowledge, by the way, and some of you all are able to assess that, and I'm able to peep that out with the type of skill set that I have. And I think that they have the expertise in that category that can help people, like with affidavits. I do know the reason I brought Jonah up, I heard allegedly that he sued a clerk of the court down in Georgia. I'm not sure how he went in, but I heard allegedly there's a way to even sue your attorney general in your state for breach of trust, because they're supposed to act as, I guess, trustees, they're fiduciaries in the bankruptcy. And there's two different constitutions, I've been informed some years ago. What determines what side that you're operating on sometimes is depending on what type of contracts you're involved with, because what you have to be careful, and I did previous videos discussing this, is you want to dismantle certain types of adhesion contracts, because these are benefit privileges. When not properly removed, it places one back into their jurisdiction. multiple ways if you're not careful. It can be multiple different ways. You could be placed back into their jurisdiction if you're not careful, if you not remove these contracts. Now, some people, I want to say it's a difference. Some people think when you remove certain contracts, let me also clarify, a while, not too long ago, I was on a Telegram call that some people had, and I try to help, the people get better clarification because this information is meticulous. And some people think when you remove certain contracts that that's not going to allow you to get access to the funds or currency. Because, legally there is no money. There's Federal Reserve notes, which those notes are copywritten, even though we're used to calling it money, which I try to use currency, by the way. But, it's fiat when you study it thoroughly and understand. That's why I went over some of those documentaries, go over those types of things. If there's other documentaries I can think of, I highly recommend you watch. Check out Money Masters, Monopoly Men, Ring of Power, Empire of the City, Changes on the Horizon. Check out Changes on the Horizon. Check out the Zeitgeist documentaries too, if you can. I forgot about those. If the documentary's still around, Esoteric Agenda. Check out Esoteric Agenda. But don't look always so much at the esoteric part, because some people get caught up in the philosophies and stuff. But in terms of the banking aspect, they will help bring things, give you a well-rounded perspective, by the way. And still keep you on the right pathway, so you understand fractional reserve banking, what is going on. Because I was also going to mention another thing that ties in with this topic, why redemption education and some procedures, different procedures, don't work. Debt discharge is another procedure that has been weaponized, by the way. And I refer you all back to reading Barton Butte's work from some years ago. Yusuf Ale actually covered this topic. I covered this before, but Yusuf covered it very thoroughly at one time. But look up Barton Bruce if you can still find his documents. It's hard because that website Scribd took a lot of documents that used to be free on YouTube, and it's now charging people for those documents that used to be free. By the way, used to be able to pull up, like years ago, I would go up to the college, print them up from my computer, my PC, and I still have a lot of those documents in storage containers. By the way, I'm going to try to go over some of those documents and scan some of those things for to show proof. Like there's videos on content that I'm working on down the road. I have to basically be like the writer, producer, editor of those things. I try to have notes prepared for you guys. So down the road, just to give you guys a heads up, because I was speaking with someone a while ago, and I'm going to start working on doing content. Of course, you guys know, because of the censorship that's been going on, and for a long time from YouTube, there's another platform. I do have the website, and it's going to take me some time, once again, guys, to bear with me. I'm still on the slavery plantation, as I shouldn't have been, but there's some things that I've gone through, definitely, and I can show valid documentation, very powerful documentation for something I was also part of some years ago, and some other things that to validate the experience that I have in this type of information. Oh, I see I just noticed I got a super chat in here. I want to acknowledge Steve Mayfield. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you. I've seen you in here for a while. You've been a supporter of the channel, follower. Thank you for rocking with me, continuing to stay loyal. Big shout out to you. By the way, I'm going to go up and read the comments to acknowledge you guys right now. Let me see here. So we have Steve Stein in the building, says, good evening, Dorsey. Appreciate you, Steve. Thank you for joining. Sandra says, good evening. Good evening, Sandra. Appreciate you. Lynn Hopper says, good evening. Thank you for joining, Lynn. Maximus Andromeda says, greetings. Thank you. Greetings to you as well. Says, this information is a rite of passage. Not all want to be free. Yes, I do agree. Says, some want to follow others. Others are meant to lead. Yes, thank you. Darren Jackson in the building says, We really appreciate your hard work during this procedure. I appreciate you, Darren. Thank you for staying loyal to the channel. Supreme L Bay, 18 USC subsection 2076 says clerk is to file. Okay, thank you for that, Supreme. Appreciate you. I knew there was a law out there because there was a brother that I haven't been in touch with for a while out of New Jersey area some years ago that I had met at this seminar, and he had told me actually that information. He said it was supposed to be where they're supposed to file any paperwork you give them, but I said particular certain documents, you know, to keep it professional. But that's what he stated. I have to go over that law. But I had another document some years ago. I don't know if it's still in my possession. I would have to find it because I've acquired a lot of documents throughout the years that talked about the county, the rights that you had and what they were supposed to file. And I was even informed once again by a private source that I have, an elite private source, that they're supposed to have a miscellaneous file. And I've heard allegedly that Wayne County, Michigan, I don't know, I can't say it for sure, appears to be that they removed the miscellaneous filing, but they're supposed to have a miscellaneous filing. And I was informed this could possibly be the case, but that is illegal. And this is being done. And David Jose, the reason I brought him up earlier, I just found out he's having some type of webinar. I haven't really kept up with his channel or work. I just happened to catch, I saw he's having like a part 2 where he's teaching people, and he's very well studied. By the way, when I mentioned David Jose, he's been a guest of the Stu Peters show. And I mentioned, check out the Stu Peters show. If you go to Rumble, because of the censorship on YouTube, unfortunately, go to Rumble. That's another video web hosting platform that respects freedom of speech and the First Amendment. They're not a big tech bully like Google is, Alphabet, the parent company, Apple. Some of these other big tech giant bullies are not abiding by the law because they become super conglomerate corporations, which I was warned about years ago from a private CD that was given to me by my cousin, from a man who's very well studied out of the Las Vegas area. By the way, I'll refer to as the Don. By the way, I won't say his last name, but thanks to him, his research, by the way, some of these entities have formed very powerful super conglomerate corporations. And what we see what's going on today is not a coincidence where they're abusing their power, their authority, by the way, and creating these other types of loopholes when we already have laws on the books, by the way. But go to Rumble, check out Rumble. If you're wondering, some of the people you might be wondering if their YouTube channel disappeared, Greg Hunter is on Rumble as well. He was like an economist. His content was like G-rated, if at the most PG 13, if at all, or PG or G-rated. In comparison to me, to the other content that YouTube allows, is very hypocritical. But Greg Hunter, it's like he interviews a lot of economists, people that are into precious metals, gold and silver. I know some of you all out there like to know about that type of information that pertains to precious metals, gold and silver. Greg Hunter is like the guy that interviews a lot of those type of people that can help provide insight in that area. By the way, also he's interviewed Cliff High from the Webbot report. Cliff High, you can find some of his, and Cliff High is given closely. If you pay attention, I've gone back and watched some of his older videos where he's predicted that Bitcoin to hit as high as over 100,000. And I'm wondering if it could be this year. I know people were saying that last year Bitcoin hit a record of like 69,000. But was rumored that even though the market's been down, we've been in a bear market for a while. Last year we had up and down cycles, even though overall it was a bull market, but we did have down cycles, and we had major pullback towards the end of last year into the beginning of this year, drastically major pullbacks, and we've been in a bear market for a while. But you know, what is the saying? What goes down must come up, by the way. So just pay attention, keep that in mind. But you can check out Cliff High and some of his information. Just type in his name on Rumble, Cliff High, and Greg Hunter and Stu Peters show. So once again, David Jose, I recommend for those that have issues with CPS, Child Protective Services, custody, and how to sue public officials, gatekeepers, is very thorough. And it may seem impossible at first, and he goes over this, but stick with David. He is very good at what he does. For someone like Jonah Bay, who I admire, who's highly advanced, for him to do a joint webinar. And if you go to Jonah Bay's website, johnahbay.com, he says it was a webinar they did a while ago. I'm pretty sure it's still beneficial. He did a joint webinar with David Jose on Jonah Bay Blogspot, something like that. You have to manually do a search on it thoroughly, because I think Google search engines were trying to hide Jonah Bay's website. I kind of went over that a little bit, but he has a webinar that he did with David Jose, and I think it will help people that are dealing with issues with CPS, Child Protective Services out there. I didn't know that there was a lot of people. And David Jose also has a YouTube channel. By the way. I've never met David Jose, by the way, so this is not no clout chase or anything like that. I'm just giving good information, good quality information, like a referral source. And also, this is a form of, like, I know people that follow me for a while that are trusting of me, that like the content that I put out. I've been informed privately because they trust my word, and I'm able to I've done research and I'm continue to do research and evaluate these things. So I just wanted to give you guys that jewel right there. But I've never met. You can let David know, hey, Dorsey sent you if you want to. Dorsey's resource sent you over there. But I think he's very well studied, highly skilled, and I've watched a lot of his interviews on the Stu Peters show, and I see Stu has came a ways, because it seemed like he wasn't grasping or giving Dave enough time. And that's why I said you have to be, don't be quick to judge, but try to understand, research the information first, because this information can get meticulous. Now, back on the topic of this video, in case you're joining me, you're watching Dorsey's Resource. This is my main channel. If you haven't, you can subscribe to my backup channel as a backup as well, Dorsey's Resource channel too. Just type in the YouTube search engine. By the way, so whenever I put out new content, new updates, you guys will receive that. It should be in the description box after the video uploads. Where to follow me on social media if you guys want to follow me. I'm not that active, by the way, too much, but I will post like my latest video. So in case, let's say if you're on one platform and you want to be notified, or if YouTube is not sending you the notifications, some people have told me that they still weren't getting the notifications, and I asked, make sure you click the notification bell. But for whatever reason, because of the censorship some years ago, YouTube was not putting me in the suggested section anymore. That's why when you see some of my old Dinar videos that I left up, those videos had 20, 30,000 views, etc. And I had some videos removed where I had way more than that because the censorship was so heavy. So make sure you subscribe to me on my other platform. I am also on Rumble as well. So give me some time. I don't have a lot of videos yet. And I'm also on the other site, by the way, because you guys know I'm working with Lady B, Lady Tech. Also, big shout out to her behind the scenes. It's going to take me a while, as I had a consultation with a subscriber who she informed me, I won't say her name to protect her identity, that it took her a while to learn Microsoft Teams. And she said once she learned how to use it, then she loves it. But she said it was pretty tough. And, I have to, because I'm still on the plantation, and unexpectedly I work the type of job where I've been on call. By the way, in case you guys don't know, I'm sharing this for the first time. I've fortunately been on call sometimes where I don't know, where they cut my hours at one particular site and move me to a different location. So to make up for those hours, it's like they put that account that I was at, put it where the supervisor. So they had me whenever the supervisors have been calling off, they've been having me as an unofficial backup. So I have been looking in the meantime for other work until I finish correcting my status. But I am very knowledgeable and status correction things pertaining to that. And I do know remedies in other areas that we're putting together that on the other site. For example, I know how to stop the federal, state, city taxes with your employer if you do still work a 9 to 5 job. There's other remedies. I do know about the documentation people can send to that government institution that can stop your taxes altogether. By the way, I won't say the name of that document. Just deals with a revocation. Some of you all may already know about that, but that particular document, I'm familiar with that. I'm also familiar with another document that a lot of people, I haven't heard any other guru speak of except one of the ones I mentioned earlier. By the way, there's one form in particular with the IRS that, along with some of these other procedures, has not been filed. I was really surprised because I was invited to a private webinar a couple years ago with someone that's highly advanced out of the Florida area that I witnessed that was pulling checks down from the Treasury, and they weren't totally using, it appears to be, the 1099 process. They didn't show the full process they're using because, of course, they understood they wanted to keep it private because if too many people, of course, got a hold of it, then you would have what's going on like with the 1099A, how it's been a stampede and they've changed things up. But I do hear that does still work contrary to popular belief out there. Things are being changed up because there's a stampede of people who are attempting to utilize these remedies. And there are people, I'm getting reports in, that are receiving the latest versions of the 2022 in the mail. But I was also informed some years ago that it was suggested that you do the physical documents instead of filing online. By the way, that was suggested for whatever reason. It's just out of creativity. I filed for the first time earlier this year because of the hype and things. I got involved, and I do hear there's some people that have access to advanced portals out there that can pull up and see in real time if the documents that are processed are going through, etc. Those are some high level things, because keep in mind, some people have credentials. There's people out there that are certified public accountants, tax attorneys. There's people that may be aware of the private sector versus people who are public gatekeepers that are unaware at all. So the ones that I'm speaking of that are already in the public but know about the private side, they would be more acclimated with knowing how to maybe the turnaround and things of that sort to get those processed faster. But there was a reason that was put in place some years ago. Debt discharge has been weaponized, and I wanted to go over, this is related to the topic of the video, why redemption education, why some procedures don't work. And this procedure of debt discharge, some people call it an offset of debt, has been weaponized. Refer back to Barton Bukes. The reason I brought up Barton Bukes, he was an investigative journalist, and I may cover this again. I have the document in one of my PDF files where he actually interviewed some years ago. This actually occurred according to these white papers. By the way, when I was reading these documents earlier on, he interviewed former Secretary of Treasury Paul O'Neill before Paul O'Neill left office. Similar to U.S. presidents, different positions, politicians, how they serve terms and have so many years. He got a chance to speak with Paul O'Neill privately and relayed information back that Paul O'Neill acknowledged at the time that they received negotiable instruments and they processed them. Now, see, this is a bombshell because there's some out there who say, debt discharge doesn't work or 1099 doesn't work. The problem is we also are dealing with banksters, fraudsters that are committing egregious fraud, very, very egregious fraud. This is on a level of financial terrorism, forced economic oppression. This is why you have wealth inequality and not a lot of financial literacy. Because this business credit scheme, something else they came up with some years ago, but I was informed, I have confirmation. You guys may not know because a lot of newbies out there don't know about the elites, the private sector, still don't have a full understanding. You know about redemption, but they don't understand how these processes came about and how there's higher levels to this. There's a caste system and how this information trickles down. I figured out how this information has trickled down from the people that are controlling the system high up. that are pulling the strings, the actual strings, and the bloodline, some may call, how they leak out documents or information and get it down to their underlings or people that may have worked with them or worked for them, and then they trickle it down to everybody else. I'm aware of how that infrastructure is also referred to as 6 degrees of separation. Mean it's kind of related to that concept, 6 degrees of separation. But I wanted to stress, and I can't stress this enough, debt discharge, offset of debt, getting rid of means to extinguish, because you can't pay a debt with the debt. Keep in mind, Federal Reserve notes are fiat. And when they created this fraud, when they created the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, you have to understand when they did the thing with the, you guys already know the story with the gold and silver, when they created House Joint Resolution 192, even though there's some that argue that that's the government because that's a House resolution, but that statute, keep in mind, that's codified as statutes at large, statute 48, section 112. You want to read that. It's also codified. I did a previous video you want to check out. You have to scroll back on my channel on negotiable instruments, the longer version. There was an earlier version, a video like right before that. I had some technical difficulty, but the video right after that is about maybe 30 minutes. I can't remember the length of that video. I went over a lot of information. I got excellent feedback from, and I went over the laws that deal with debt discharge and offset, how they're fraudulently blocking, and they're supposed to be allowing certain negotiable instruments to be filed. They're not supposed to be making it difficult, where all these people have got documents, are tediously filing with the IRS trying to get remedy. But there's a few other remedies where I know a guy that's also done a procedure where he's pulled funds down from the Treasury that's gone through successfully. He did it correctly because he had a trust set up. I was also informed how some people that did that process incorrectly, that didn't have their trust set up, had cars and stuff taken. I've been part of this for quite a while. Some of you guys don't know. I'm not a newbie to this. So some of these stories I tell is prior to this year, 2017. These stories that I'm telling you are this story in particular, some of these stories happened well before 2017. Before certain people came out or were well known or hit the scene. These are actual confirmed stories, by the way. You don't believe me, and that's on you. But I actually have confirmed people. There's people that do know me, that know that I know. I even had a subscriber where she told me, she confirmed to me some of the things that I'm going over right now. But this is why I said you have to also network with people, share with people in your group what works through word of mouth, disseminate amongst each other. That's how the technology has gotten better. That's how we figure out what works and what doesn't work, is by sharing with those that are close to us, by the way, so we can refine or retool our processes when the powers that shouldn't be, the gatekeepers and minions, when they change their procedures around, we can change with it. By the way, we can adapt, I should say, to the procedure. And that's the reason they have been giving us a difficult time, and it's mainly coming from the Federal Reserve Bank. And even to a degree, cryptocurrencies have been part of this high-level banking scheme that these banking fraudsters have created to loot and rob the American people. Cryptocurrencies is another high-level elusive scheme they created. Just have to be real at the end of the day. There's some things I do like now about it, but they're forcing you on it, and eventually everybody's going to have to learn it, because I received some information. I went over this in my previous video, by the way, over a month ago, that all the major banks or smaller mom and pop banks are they're changing over to blockchain, by the way. But, I covered that already. But one side gives off an illusion that it's decentralized from the Federal Reserve Bank. However, there's still an attachment to international card processors, major banking institutions. Coinbase, by the way, you look at that as a cryptocurrency exchange. Coinbase has to have a bank account. There has a current bank account it's attached to. I forgot the name of the bank, by the way, but they have a bank account that is under the Federal Reserve Bank, which is regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission. So all this talk that some people tell you, and I got into it a while ago, I was invited to a private call back in 2017, by the way, where one of the guys, they kicked me out of one of the groups because I challenged him. He tried to poo-poo the Iraqi dinars at the time when I brought up, and I said, well, it still goes back to all digital. Even because think about it, I'll give you an example. You know how people write checks off their regular bank account? By the way, someone told me years ago, what are paper checks and Federal Reserve notes still drawn off of? It's electronic. If you understand fractional reserve banking, they pull the money, they create the fiat out of thin air. Those are tracking numbers they put on there that are attached to people's birth certificates, the numbers on the back of the Social Security card. That's what backs you. And one of the reasons this ties in with the topic, they don't want you becoming free. By the way, is major public corruption, is because there's another law, I think it's Title 18, Section 8. You are an instrumentality of the United States. You are part, you're all caps, or referred to as your straw man. The government, created that. It encompasses multiple organizations. It is an organization that comprises different structures within that organization. For example, your all caps name that's referred to in the court system as an en lingus, it's also a trust. And I forget, this is, thank you, God, this is very important for those that discuss discharge. You have to keep in mind there is a debtor and creditor side to your SSN, your SSN number, the front, the Sesta trust. Notice there's like three types of accounts, 3 or 4. And just starting with the numbers on the front of the Social Security card, you have the auto trist. If you know banking, you guys have studied, what is that called? That other form of, accounting, excuse me. If you studied accounting, the generally accepted rules, principles of accounting, you have what's called double entry bookkeeping. Double entry bookkeeping, you have debits and credits, accounts payable, accounts receivable, assets and liabilities, where you have to balance the books. The IRS is the accounting agency on behalf of the United States government. They balance the books, but they work with the U.S. Treasury, and they are connected to the Federal Reserve. So all these people, some out there may be telling you that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, the IRS, the Federal Reserve is going to go away, etc. There's a point where I hear down the road they're supposed to be phased out, but the IRS has a deep relationship with the Federal Reserve. Don't believe that. They all are brother and sister. You can go on their websites and look it up. If you go to frbservices.org, there's even a section on there that shows Treasury management, that has Treasury on the site. What does it tell you? Treasury on the Federal Reserve site. What it is, some years ago, there were members of the private sector, very elite people. There was a call, gentleman told me about privately, called Thing 1 and Thing 2. I might actually have copies of it some years ago. I'm still in the process of locating that particular call. And these members of the private sector said with this changeover that's going to happen, what some people refer to as the global currency reset, hopefully not the great reset that the evil cabal wants, Klaus Schwab and the evil ones with the World Economic Forum, by the way, is they were saying that the Federal Reserve at the time was not going to totally go away. It's just the Treasury was going to take over as the majority shareholder. This is what they stated at the time. Now, their plans, I think down the road, things could have changed. But generally speaking, what I'm watching, what I've been noticing with the war that happened with Russia, Ukraine, there's a connection with that. That's why I went over those documentaries. It's important to check out Money Masters. They go over the history, how a certain family funded both sides of the war years ago. You've heard of war bonds before. If you've ever heard of war bonds, what are war bonds? You want to look that up. There's a connection to the international cartel, international banking cartel. By the way, the numbers from the back of your Social Security card, I learned this from Winston Strauss some years ago. Even though he didn't have all the information, he had very good information where he mentioned about the Sesta trust, the numbers on the front of the Social Security card, but the numbers on the back is connected to the IMF. That when I attended this private event some years ago, they were sharing with us, teaching us how the numbers on the back were used to be processed a certain way to go through the DTC. And I was going to mention earlier
those lower entities, the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, it's all these other corporations. They're all running through the DTC. That's the acronym for Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. And there's different subdivisions, and then there's a parent company behind the scenes referred to as seeding company. There's like another company, that's their organic company or their common law company when they started off years ago. If you're wondering the formation, because in the early 1900s, I was informed, majority of corporations in the United States started off as common law express trust. Majority of corporations in the United States started off, let me say it again, as common law express trust. There was a process they went through before they became what some corporations are today, super powerful corporations that have become super conglomerates, and those speak for themselves, like the Alphabets of the world, the AT&Ts, the Googles, the Comcast, which I think now owns NBC, Disney now owns ABC. These are super conglomerate corporations, and notice how they control the mainstream media, which they don't tell you, by the way. It's $1 billion industry, and that's why they're not going to tell you the truth. Sometimes a lot of even your local news anchors reading from teleprompters and are required to report on the information that they're specifically required, unlike independent journalists who give their opinion, by the way, which they don't like that. And that's why, they're going after a certain individual, and why they have his name all plastered in the news, all over the news. He's been trending lately. Is because that's one of the things why they changed this law a while ago. They wanted to be able to go after certain journalists they didn't agree with. And I even hear this corrupt administration even created something. I forget what it's called specifically, but what they call the Truth Department or something like that, based off George Orwell's book 1984. I believe I get the concept. I never read the book, but I've spoken with people throughout the years, and they made movies and stuff like that about this. But that's why there's an agenda, and it's important to keep your eyeglasses on to pay attention to what they're doing. And this is how all this ties in. This is all connected. So I went over these corporations have formed super conglomerates, by the way. So these are like, for example, the AT&Ts of the world, the Apples, the Googles, Google's parent company, Alphabet, by the way, that came about. Amazon is another one, by the way. And, it speaks for itself. And that's why another reason some of these corporations are abusing their power, because they have a war chest of money to hire lawyers. And notice the individual that I referred to, I didn't say his name, that they're attacking, they're going after in the media. Notice how they're going after his money. A friend of mine said this. Notice that specifically. Pay attention to that. What is the main weapon they're using against us and making it so difficult to access? Notice that. And this has been in the making a long time. Now, some of these documentaries I went over, without a spoiler alert, when you check them out, will give you a well-rounded perspective once you watch them, if you have not watched them already, and study them. I would say watch them again. You will learn something new you didn't catch the first time, or something you didn't see. Even myself, when I go over these same documentaries, I get something new out of it, by the way. Just something to keep in mind. So before I shut things down, I'm going to try to get to the rest of these comments in the comment section. By the way, I'm going to scroll up. So appreciate that information, Supreme. I last started off with you for that information about 18 USC subsection 2776. That's if the clerk look that up. I'm going to have to look that up myself. It's giving you a hard time in your county. I know Jonah mentioned, I was listening to one of his, he does free consultation on his YouTube channel on Wednesdays. He does consultation Wednesday. And he went over, he puts out, a lot of people put out so much content, so I'm not able to catch all these people faithfully, by the way, from time to time. But just the video I caught, and he mentioned he had to sue his clerk down in where he's at in Georgia, and he knows how to do it. So him and David Jose are the guys to contact to research that are very well studied when it comes to that part of learning the law, like learning how to file summons and complaints, motions, briefs, discovery, stuff like that, and how to, work around their fraudulent system that's been set up by design to entrap one. And this is what I actually read in a lot of redemption documents earlier on. They're using subterfuge to ensnare you, to induce you in these contracts. By the way, it's not by coincidence. So thank you for that information, Supreme. Big shout out to you. Tony Benson Mahuka says, aloha, Dorsey. Aloha to you. Thank you, Tony. Maximus Andromeda says, yes, debt notes. We have Lisa Julian in the building. Appreciate you for joining, Lisa. Says, I got lots of work to do. Love you. Appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Nabar says, peace to you. Crypto Skull says, hey, Dorsey, what's up? Appreciate you. Thank you for joining, Crypto Skull. Lisa Julian says, what do you think of David Lester Straight? David Straight, yeah, he's phenomenal. I know about, he's one of the new people that's kind of hit the scene in terms of the old traditional secured party creditor information. Every so many years, going back years ago, there was like a new guru, somebody that would hit the scene where everybody would jump on their process. But now we have people that are highly advanced. Some people that have gone that are more so private. Like to give you some insight, Lisa, I was invited to a private webinar or private meetings a year. I think it was during the year of COVID, actually. By the way, I can't remember specifically, but it was like a year and a half ago, something like that. So it may be the year when COVID happened. I was invited to these private meetings, and or it may have been the year after we went through that. By the way, and the individual was really highly advanced, I would say. And there's some others out there as well. I'm just not saying his name in particular. This is a totally different person than the people I mentioned just now. There's a lot of people I know, a handful, quite a few that are highly advanced, that if I had the money, the funds, I would drop in a heartbeat. I wouldn't have no problem dropping the paid purchase their process. I'm in the midst right now of trying to work on that, because there was some things that I started some years ago. I still do have some documentation that it was actually filed on record. If you guys are wondering, throughout the years, I have filed a lot of paperwork because I've been studying this information since 2004. And I also have several declarations that were ran in the paper. I not only did a lawful name change, I also did a name change dealing with my government name other than my indigenous lawful name change. And they both were actually ran in the paper. And there's, I think declarations were done on both of them. So I have numbers with the Secretary of State, separate certifications for them, affidavits compiled, and this is separate from other processes. I did the cancelator process some years ago. Maybe a few that are familiar with the cancelator process with the common law court, the apostille. This is way before the authentication came about. So I'm familiar with older gurus, but David Straight, somebody that's new, that's hit the scene. I think he's phenomenal. I have to check out, research more of his information and what he does, but he's brought some things to my attention that has struck my curiosity in terms of his uniqueness and his skill set. And I think that episode that Vice did on him, they misrepresented what he was about, and that was mainly a slander. I think I like Vice, some of the episodes that they do, but I think, as I kind of went over earlier in this video, similar to a lot of people in the general public, they're misinformed, by the way, and you have to be careful. And I always encourage one, don't take my word for what I say. Please do your research and homework. That's why I put that in the disclaimer. If you investigate what I'm saying, you will see where I'm coming from. And down the road, I've had people come back and say, hey, Dorsey, I see you were right, or you were correct about this. They may not have understood it at first. And, you know, I'm meticulous about certain things that I break down. And I think you guys should be the same way as well. Use critical thinking. Very critical thinking, because this information, they've tried to hide this. And David Jose in the webinar, I noticed he was doing, he has gone recently, by the way, I don't know what day it is. I just happened to catch it briefly from his YouTube channel, I believe. You look up, I don't remember if his YouTube channel is in his name or if it's in a different name. But if you type in his name on YouTube, it should come up, by the way. He mentioned that there's something that they're doing in the court system. And I've already been knowing this for a number of years. They're giving people like I said earlier in the video, it's not a coincidence why they're giving people a hard time filing paperwork, because the court system deals with the CRIS accounts. The CRIS accounts are an acronym for Court Registry Investment System. Now, I've discussed this for the first time. I'm gonna give you guys a jewel. I've normally only discussed this in some private consultations. I have discussed part of what I'm going over vaguely or briefly before in previous videos. I can't remember which one. So I give you guys some good information. Well, CRIS is an acronym, just like with the county, it has a separate portal called CAFR. The county has a separate portal referred to as CAFR. CAFR is an acronym for Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. The court system, or district courts or circuit courts, has another portal that deals with CRIS. CRIS is an acronym for Court Registry Investment System. Court Registry Investment System is connected to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve Bank, by the way. That's how they tap into your the you know what. There's a process. There's a method to this madness, best believe. So this is this thing what they call the straw man is real. It's not what some people brush it off as conspiracy theory. This is not a conspiracy theory. I've said this before. This is not a cult. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is not a financial cult. People spewing that type of information, just look at them. They're misinformed. And you have to understand, some people just don't know it all. They've been brainwashed because the system wants people to be brainwashed to be good citizen slaves. And the concept why they don't want you becoming free, they want to continue to make money off you and charging your bond behind the scenes. That's one reason, because Jonah Bey actually had a discussion. I was looking at one of his older consultation videos, or YouTube videos he has on YouTube. Can't remember which one, but I've heard him discuss this. It could have been on Hindsight Radio. He also had a show. I don't know if he still does the shows on Hindsight, by the way, or Blog Talk, if he still does his shows on there. Because I know he streams through YouTube. He links his Facebook, I think, and his Instagram to his YouTube channel. So I'm not sure if he still does Hindsight, but I've listened to him in the past when I was able to catch him, because he has a lot of content out there. And he stated there was people that were having a hard time filing in the county, and he had to sue. Some of you all may have to look into this yourself on actually going about finding out how to sue the clerk, or find out from someone how to sue your county clerk or these officials that are giving you a hard time filing your paperwork, because they are preventing you from accessing your freedom. Because what they're not telling you, what I'm learning behind the scenes, and big shout out to the individual out there that I learned about the process from continuing to study. This shows you guys, I still have my eyeglasses on. I'm still paying attention. There's a process I'm considering down the road. I may have to hurry up, that I did discover. And the individual, he was speaking in code on his YouTube channel. And you know, there's different channels out there that teach. And I saw he was basically giving the keys. And I know about the keys. One of his videos, he said he got the keys, and I said I didn't know, because I now know by something he mentioned. Such a small world. I'm kind of speaking in code now, just being vague, because I know there's people out there, and but I'm gonna continue to speak in code. But it's such a small world. I say that, and he was dropping some jewels every now and then, and he said he basically has the keys, and I said I didn't realize. So there's a difference between having a lien over the estate and having the status change, because some years ago I had a UCC on file, several different UCCs in Michigan. Now, Michigan, this was also part of the title, while they were is one of the states they were giving people a hard time filing, because they're trying to say you can't file as the same name. But with these public officials, they created some type of law or statute saying you can't file as the all caps. But the problem, what they don't understand, is that the all caps name is not you. The system is actually committing fraud when you're sent the bill in that name. I'm giving you guys a very powerful jewel. But remember, there's a saying I think this is part of the maxim of law. If you don't rebut the presumption, then they will assume tacit agreement. It's like similar to judgment of estoppel. He who does not deny admits fault. So when they've created this fraud, they've induced us into a form of involuntary servitude. Very, very egregious and very manipulative. It's very deceptive, very deceitful. I'm not just using these words just to sound cool, but this is very, very deceitful, what they've done. And it's very, very methodical in its plot, the way this was set up. Very, very methodical. And that's why a lot of things people are having trouble getting remedy with discharge, because some of the discharge or offset processes is tied in with this, where that block is not there once you change your status. It's been weaponized. But when you get a bill and it's in all caps, you have to remember at the end of the day. And when I first learned about this information many years ago from a gentleman I used to call who helped me out after I woke up, I met this individual. I won't say his name. I've mentioned his name in previous videos to give a shout out to, but I won't say his name now to keep him vague, more private. But a big shout out to, he helped me out in the city of Detroit some years ago. He had a family. He was married at the time, by the way. I won't go into details. I met him in November of 2004 at a guy that I knew that was a music artist in the city, by the way. And met him through guys who used to work for this guy. And I won't go into details, but I'll just say the music artist, he used to live in the city of Detroit. He moved further out the city. I think he's moved in California now. He's resettled, by the way. And but this other individual I met introduced me to these two guys November of 2004. It's a couple months after I woke up, attending my first meetings. I stayed in touch with the number of brothers for quite a number of years, and I ran into one of them a year or two ago. I have his number, contact information, and he stated to me back then, this is very important. He stated, and he harped on this quite a bit. You have to remember that all caps name, the en lingus. I know there's different processes out there, many different types of status correction, but you have to pay close attention to this. That all caps version of you that was put on your birth certificate, generally speaking, some people said their birth certificate was in upper and lowercase, but you have to remember, you need this to reflect on the record, something I didn't fully see. I kind of did, but I didn't. I started on this process some years ago because I'm connected to this guy where some of this information came from. I won't, I'm not going into detail. Some people can figure out, some people that know me as I'm speaking in code can figure out who I'm talking about, who I may be referring to. But I'm being vague. But I didn't know, as this individual was speaking in code, and they said they got the keys. And I said, okay, they were dropping some heavy jewels. I was paying attention. And I even saw a document they showed with their name and one name, how it was the trustee, and the other one was the trust, something like that. They showed in the video. I think I downloaded that video. I have to go back to. But I said, okay, because we were being given a hard time in our own state, the state of Michigan. And I know some other people mentioned this. The UCC office started making it difficult. Like in other places, I heard if you have certain words or certain terminology, they won't file it for you. And I'm not talking about the county file it. I'm talking about at the state UCC offices. That's separate. Some places you can file your UCC at your county recorder as well. They actually have a specific section on the county recorder's website, some places. But it's like I say, different places, they're hiding, because you have to keep in mind, you check out David Jose, you'll understand that they're committing fraud within the court system. I want you guys to understand, because a lot of top people aren't telling you, when they're selling you on certain processes, certain procedures, you have to also keep in mind the court system is very, very corrupt. Now, I know the media, similar to how they paint a picture of police officers, you abusing a lot of people's power. You guys have to understand, and I'm not saying all. You got to keep in mind, I'm not saying all, not stereotyping. But the way the judicial system is set up, remember, they speak an entirely different language called legalese. And I'm still in the process of learning that. Some of you are familiar with David Windmiller that talked about syntax grammar. This is set up to induce people. It's a form of trickery. And I heard Akeem L mention this. Big shout out to Akeem as well. I like the work that he does. They're using subterfuge. So understand, this is one of the problems, that people are having problems filing paperwork, why some procedures don't work, why some procedures and different processes are not working, or there's people are having trouble with the documents going through, because this is certain gatekeepers that are doing this. But when you understand the history where this is coming from, you have a better understanding how to get remedy, how to go about it. So I've learned, and more so recently, that you need to correct the name so that it reflects on a public record. And I said, maybe I have to do that, because I had a lien. I know I had a lien on the estate some years ago, because I was on, I would say maybe still on a partial form of the do not detain list. I know that's a really hot subject. It's a separate subject within itself that's become really popular, the do not detain list. By the way, there was a separate video I was planning on doing to discuss the legitimacy of that. And like I said, there's new people on the scene. There's a guy out there, another guy, separate from the other person I'm speaking of, that has video, new information. And I think I like a lot of the work that he puts out. But however, some of the information I can tell is fraud. It's not totally accurate. And I do understand, and he's not the only one. That's the first person that's spoken to business credit, by the way. He's not the first on the scene. There's others out there that's had groups. Some of them have retired or not really as active anymore on YouTube, like Hellraiser, who's familiar with me, who I know Hellraiser I've spoken to before, who also goes by the name Malachi, Trade Capital. Big shout out to. He does the business credit procedure. There's another guy who's also a subscriber that reached out to me privately. I have to follow up with, because I had a subscriber. She was interested. I had a consultation with, interested in that guy's information. I don't know if he followed up. I've been meaning to follow up with her to find out, but I needed to follow up because he gave me some information when I did contact him a while ago. He couldn't speak during that time period, but maybe he might be listening. I can catch up with him again. He has some information I was expecting to get an email from. He said he was sending me some powerful information. And then you also had Don Kalam, by the way, who also has books on Amazon, just like the other individual that I'm speaking of, that has talked about business credit in the past. So, that's another way, but they've weaponized debt discharge. And because people have difficulty or are afraid to challenge the system, are afraid to file lawsuits. And that's what one individual encouraged me 2 years ago was you have to stand up to these bullies. Like when that TDA movement broke out back in 2017, I found out we almost, if more people participated, we could have had more signatures to file a class action lawsuit, or at least at the time we were working on, Mike O'Brien was working on trying to find a good attorney, a good lawyer who would take on the case. By this time period, Tom Cryer had already died. He would have been a perfect lawyer to take on this case. He fought many of those types of cases, but he was one of a very few, because you have to keep in mind, to validate what I'm saying, many members of the Bar Association don't uphold justice. You have to understand justice. They use words of art. It's a code term for just us. Justice and the Bar Association, you have to understand that just because if you hire a lawyer, they still are members of the bar. It's set up as a court racket. Jordan Maxwell, rest in peace to the aka the Godfather. Jordan Maxwell's a great researcher, mentioned this some years ago, and he was a major contributor to a lot of information that deals with the redemption education, sovereignty, UCC. There's a DVD I'm working on finding. I actually have from some years ago, where he did a DVD discussing, and it would be good information if I can find that, get it uploaded on YouTube for a lot of newbies out there, to break down some of these concepts historically, where they derive from. They would help give a better understanding and validate what they're doing and how they've been getting away with this fraud, this trickery that's being used to deceive the American people. This is real. So I felt this was important to cover, and I'm not covering this because there are some out there that will say that, oh, you're being negative, Dorsey. No, I'm not being negative at all. Remember, there's a different tonality too in my voice. I'm not being negative, or I'm not making excuses. There's some that like to say, oh, you're making excuses to not become free. But you have to keep in mind that this universe is yin and yang. Everything has an opposite. So these are not excuses, but they're very egregious forms of obstacles and roadblocks that are as difficult. And this is not just with me, but it's happening to other people, that you really have to fight and do hardcore investigative research meticulously, because when we're dealing with these gatekeepers, they're not going to always be fair. There's people that work for these public officials that know they're participating in fraud, by the way, and they're not. I learned from watching. Well, I won't kind of go into that, but those hearings that occurred some years ago, from a big incident that occurred towards the end of the year, going into the new year. By the way, you remember when those people were traveling across the country and they were bringing in those forensics people that had a lot of background and credentials. I'd never seen nothing like that happen. And they were being totally disregarded as bogus. And that was coming from your mainstream media, which is I kind of went over earlier, is $1 billion industry. I heard Comcast owns NBC, like the same Comcast that deals with Comcast Cable, that bought out Barden Cable years ago, the billionaire out of Detroit. Comcast bought Don Barden Cable. I'm aware of that history. And he heard one of the reasons he sold it because he knew that they were a powerful super conglomerate corporation and they were going to do things to weaken him. So he decided it was best monetarily, instead of fighting them through court or their strategies they were going to use, he figured it was best to sell the company at the time. That was Barden Cable. By the way, historically, I know people on the west side of Detroit had cable first before the people on the east side. This is some true history. He was a billionaire, and he actually met Michael Jackson some years ago. They were working on bringing the casinos and indoor amusement park here. The mayor at the time, what was his name? Mayor Dennis Archer at that time vetoed the legislation that prevented Michael Jackson and Don Barden from starting the IX Center, which I was already familiar. That was an indoor amusement park. And the only reason I knew as a child many years ago, I don't remember how old I was, I had an aunt who happens to work political campaigns, political parties, stuff. She keeps up with politics, things like that. She's even aware of my YouTube channel. She's met Joy Reid before. That's why I have to be careful what I say sometimes. I don't know. We got agents, people out there. I'm just saying, don't know who's telling who, because I felt like some of my information was going all the way up to President Obama. Just putting it out there. But Don Barden at the time vetoed legislation that prevented Michael Jackson and Don Barden, they were black business owners, from starting the casinos, black-owned casino, and the indoor amusement park in Detroit. And I actually mentioned briefly when Don Barden, Michael Jackson passed away, both of them. Each one of them, it was kind of briefly mentioned. One of the reports, they were prominent. One of the things they don't tell you, Michael Jackson was a savvy business owner. Many of you all may know behind the scenes, he bought the Beatles collection, but a lot of you guys don't know, because I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but I live, doing business as in Detroit, by the way, and I know some of the history going back to when I was younger. But yep, some of you guys may not know that. This is critical information. And by the way, some of you guys that wanted to know about when I go into the more esoteric information that approached me about some of the books I showed in some of my previous videos about the Illuminati, the secret societies, and stuff like that. Dennis Archer was also part of the Alpha Boule fraternity. And I was just informed recently, a friend of mine told me he learned that someone he was speaking with, they mentioned around him they were going to attend something called the Boule Convention in Florida. So I said, wow. So that's like another pecking order. If you've heard of the Boule class within the black community, there's a video I uploaded on my backup channel. If you go to Dorsey's Resource Channel 2, Steve Coakley, rest in peace too. He used to work for the mayor's office out of Chicago some years ago. He was asked to investigate. He was actually a rare black investigator journalist, which was rare at the time, I think back in the 70s. And he was interviewed on some mainstream programs some years ago. I don't It was kind of before my time, but there was some old footage someone uploaded on YouTube, and he was asked to investigate why certain black men who were prominent scholars that graduated from their respective high schools with top honors were not coming out of Howard University going into the engineering program. He was asked to investigate the reasons why, and what he had discovered was that there was a boule class of professors and people that weren't allowing these men to pass their courses or graduate because they weren't part of the fraternities, et cetera. And you can apply to the sisters. And one of the ways they keep the men, the alpha males, suppressed in the black community, this will be a separate video. And I'm not trying to get woke on you guys or turn social justice, but all this stuff ties in because some of the secret societies are some of the main gatekeepers that are preventing people from getting access to their remedies as well, because they have a secret network where they're doing code signs, code language, charms. You guys have seen the license plates, the emblems and things. That's how they communicate. Now, I'm not saying all of them are bad or evil. Some people don't know what they become part of. Some of it is an initiation thing, by the way. But there are those that are aware. But just something to keep in mind and how you navigate through these treacherous waters and these obstacles, because some of us are not part of the secret societies or have not been officially initiated. And that's the reason why. So he was asked, to make a long story short, he was asked to investigate why these brothers weren't getting their college degrees. And this was the reason they weren't part of the fraternity. And you can throw some sisters in, but generally women should have a tendency to more so go along with the system and be brainwashed, unlike men that naturally can rebel against the system, because men are the alphas, generally speaking. Men are the providers, the protectors, the leaders of our society, supposed to be. Of course, they're trying to twist our society around. That's agenda by the ruling class to use social engineering to push these devious agendas down our throat. And you guys know, you can read between the lines. That's neither here nor there, but you guys can see the writing on the wall, because the men are the alphas. That's why the men are under attack all across the board, no matter what race you are. They attack the men because when they weaken the men, you know who they go after next. And they weaken the family structure as well. Just keep in mind, when you're not having families, this is how it's easier for them to isolate you as well. Something to keep in mind and think about. But all these things tie in with one another, and it's important while I go over that. So before I shut this video down, I'm going to go over the comment section. I'm going to get ready to shut things down. I went over this previously. This is why you want to dismantle certain types of adhesion contracts. These are benefit privileges. When you're not properly removed, it places one back in their jurisdiction. So this is why you have to be careful, by the way. And this ties in with the topic of redemption education, why some procedures don't work. This is major forms of public corruption. So I went over investigate Barton Butte's, who he was, his white papers. Yusuf L covered this before for a lot of newbies out there. It's important if you've been skeptical on the fence about does discharge actually work, did it work? But people are going to have to form tactical units, tactical squads of research and development, and sue these public officials and gatekeepers to get remedy. Well, it's not difficult. Some of you guys might have to hire paralegals, and some of it, if you're wondering, it won't recontract you if you've done the right things. Keep in mind, you can also do limited power of attorney. Remember, some of the powers that be still do use lawyers. By the way, remember when Aaron Russo met Nick Rockefeller years ago? Remember, Nick Rockefeller's lawyer reached out to Aaron Russo and asked him. She said, "Hey, would you like to meet Nick Rockefeller?" Right after Aaron Russo had ran for governor of Nevada at one time, because his documentary, which was effective. I never saw it yet. I saw his other documentary called America, Freedom, and Fascism, but he did a documentary called something like Mad as Hell, and he caught the attention of Nicholas Rockefeller, short Nick Rockefeller, who wanted to recruit him. By the way, see, that's one thing. And see, this is why these documentaries are powerful. Why I went over earlier, they'll wake you up. So he, just to give an example, she was a lawyer at the time. So it shows the powers that be still use lawyers, very interestingly. So you can use them too to your advantage, but understand, do the research with how to use them if necessary. I prefer the way that I operate, I use a particular process where I try to stay out the court systems by not contracting and operating a certain type of way. And there's ways to go about doing that and helping one and correcting one's status. That's all part of status correction. Because if you don't do certain things or certain procedures, you can put yourself right back in the jurisdiction, you know. And that's why I said a big shout out to, once again, the brother out there. I'm just not saying the name. Somebody be able to figure out who I'm talking about. I kind of went over earlier. One individual, I didn't say his name. He's different from some of the others I mentioned. And I said, I figured out he has the keys. And I was going to mention, I remember Jay-Z, the rapper, came out with a song called The Keys. He had the keys, by the way. So I peeped game. I just didn't know at the time that you had to reflect. You wanted to reflect on a record that the name in upper and lowercase is different from the name in all caps, because they changed the law. I was informed. I was told this by a private source I have. When he saw this in person. He went to Lansing. That's the state capital in Michigan, at the UCC office. That's where the headquarters is for the UCC filing, for the state filings, for the whole state. And he saw they had a sign posted talking about you can't file as the same name, or they will call the state police. And that's fraudulent. They're committing fraud with that, folks. You have to understand. So we're going to have to figure out, there are ways to sue them, but I want you guys to know this is what they're actively doing to change the system, to try to make this difficult from people becoming free. And this is very, very evil, very, very deceitful and evil of them to do stuff like this. But we're going to have to be smarter and be aware of and actually find ways to fight back because they can be brought down. And that's, I'm telling you, they're not invincible. Trust me on that. And we just have to find a ways to follow the right paperwork. And certain gatekeepers that are given a hard time can be removed. And remember, certain laws, codes don't apply if you've corrected your status in a particular way. I'm giving you guys another powerful secret, but that in lingus legally is not you. And this is when they're tricking you, inducing you to acting as the surety on behalf. I had to explain this to a person. They're actually committing fraud, but I didn't know when the individual came out with this process. When you do his process, and I'm considering, because, there's some things on the horizon that it will solve these problems for you, because there's a saying, he who does not deny admits fault, even though we didn't try to put ourselves in that predicament, because there was another individual that was working on a case to sue over what they did over the birth certificate, because we weren't legally competent, because we were infants. We could not be competent of what we were induced into. However, when they created this benefit privilege to use to our advantage, and I was going to say earlier, understand it's a difference. When you rescind certain things, there's a difference between claiming the security back to get funding, to get the currency. So sometimes people are confused about rescinding contracts. Will not rescind the money. It just depends on how you go about. You want the security you're attacking. That's something that's separate to get access to the currency. By the way, some people are confused. They think when you rescind certain contracts, that it'll prevent you from getting the money. Now, there is a form of status correction that if you do rescind, that's a different version. By the way, I forget what that procedure was called. It's a form of a declaration this guy sent. Someone gave me a template some years ago. You send to the Secretary of State. Now, that procedure, the guy mentioned that he regrets doing that procedure because he didn't get access to any money. Well, I should say currency, by the way. The way he took himself out, he went about a different way, a different method. There's different methods out there. But I found this particular method I'm referring to takes care of both sides. There's one method where you want to correct the name on the record, and there's another method where you put the lien over the estate, which that's important, and that can protect you in the meantime, the lien over the estate. And then there's also a separate procedure of the non-UCC, giving you guys a powerful jewel, by the way. So with that being said, I'm kind of finished going over the information. I'm going to read the rest of these chats
And then I'm going to shut the video down, by the way. Wow, looks like a lot of you guys in here on Jam. I'm scrolling back up, so we're going over the part. Okay, I went over Lisa's last comment about David Strait. Yep. Thank you. Maximus the Drama says gratitude. Lisa Julian says Cliff High is good. Make sure to watch these little ones. Stu Peters is in it about the corruption with CPS. Do check it out. Okay, I remember seeing the trailer that Stu Peters had about that. If it's already out, I'm gonna have to try to check that out, because I like that. Because I noticed there's 3 topics I mentioned to some people that I know that YouTube was preventing a lot of people from discussing. I can't really talk about. I would have to put it on Rumble to go more in depth. But there's 3 topics. One of them is Pizzagate on the child sex trafficking rings. That's what that deals with. By the way, another one is on, of course, voter fraud. You can't talk about that. And then another one is on vaccines. Those 3 different topics. Then there's another topic they stopped a lot of people from discussing. By the way, because that individual that you saw in the news, by the way, who I referred to earlier, I never saw the video footage. I never saw them show the video footage of what he specifically said about the so-called Sandy Hook victims. By the way, I never saw video footage of that. So I'm finding it interesting how were they able to sue him, because I look at, did they have genuine evidence as to material fact? In the court language, they did not have genuine evidence to material fact. That's fraud. Everything he did, but if he contracted the way he's operating, it looks like him and even his reporter, they're in their system. And that's the problem with, I know he wants to follow their rules and stuff, but see, they can construe the case how they see fit, because when they're operating in fraud, that's a kangaroo court. But why didn't they ever show the video footage you're supposed to have? Because he said this on record. They've been saying this for a number of years. They've been dragging this out. But I'm just saying, personally, from the outside looking in, I'm a listener of his show. I've been a listener for a long time. I probably would do a separate video on my backup channel. So maybe if you guys join me afterwards, like for the after party or sometime in the near future, I may cover that on my backup channel, dealing with what's happening on there. But I've been watching his channel, and I never saw the video footage of him saying that to these the so-called victims of that incident. And I have a friend who had a high-level secret security clearance in the military that told me there was a whistleblower or a guy that wrote a book that spills the real beings about what actually happened or how they're going about. And I never got that information. That's why I don't speak on that. But when that incident occurred, I really didn't pay that much attention. But I noticed back then there were different YouTube channels, and one guy in particular who would cover that type of information about false flags and stuff. But that's the other topic that they don't allow, or they crack down heavily on people discussing or showing evidence on crisis actors, stuff like that. I noticed you have to ask the question, why is YouTube, if they claim, because I look at it like this, that's hypocritical. They can let a little Nasty X, do a video with him dancing, doing lap dances with the devil, satanic stuff, and have another separate video with dancing with men in prison butt naked and say that's not offensive, but claim that my video that I did about election fraud or voter fraud was misinformation or hurtful, or and claim my video I did on Pizzagate, 2 videos I did that they removed was cyberbullying, which I think is full of crap. And then say the video I did a video dedication for Kyrie Irving with his stance about the vaccine. In my opinion, several different videos they removed and called it medical misinformation, which is PGG rated. Now, I never really talked about the false flag information, but you have to ask the question, why? But that is not fair. And I'll kick YouTube's ass, whoever the fucking piece of shit that runs YouTube is full of. If you can let a Lil Nas X, you see, this is hypocritical. You let him put a video out there that's satanic with him dancing with the devil, doing lap dances, and then a separate video with him dancing with men in prison butt naked, and say that's not offensive, but try to tell me remove the videos and tell me the reason why, and I lose all my appeals. No, I think you're full of shit, YouTube. So fuck you, YouTube, for that.
And that's just my opinion. I mean, I'm sorry to get hardcore gutter with you guys, but that's the real. And people I've talked to privately said they can clearly see. And people need to sue YouTube. If you have deep pockets or you're a high roller out there, I recommend get together. I heard it was some black YouTubers that were suing a separate case. You can look it up on YouTube. I don't know how their case is turning out, that they filed a class action lawsuit. But if people are high rollers, somebody needs to take one for the team out there and make these super conglomerate corporations obey the law. Or they need to, be somebody out there needs to be like the Hells Angels would do, or like John Gotti and Sammy the Bull would do with the mob. Because I tell a friend of mine all the time, don't let, if I was ever in Trump's position, don't let my pockets be deep, be that fat, or have deep pockets like them. Because I said, man, I would have a goon squad that would basically make some of these individuals understand. And I would just leave it at that. Like, if I had my pockets were that deep, I'm going to have some goons, by the way. Because I think, they're going overboard. When you can't get justice in the courts, you have to take matters into your own hands. And the court system, this fraudulent court system, I'm going to say, that's de facto courts, that's statutory courts, that's operating under color of law, that are admiralty, maritime courts, once again, at a de facto. Remember, common law supersedes. Common law is still around. There's a particular jurisdiction, and what I refer to deals with common law, by the way. It supersedes the jurisdiction of statutory, and that's what that gets into. And the original Declaration of Independence, I was informed, talks about having a right to form a well-regulated militia. That's why it's explicitly clear on the right to bear arms, because the founding fathers knew when you get tyrannical people, authoritarians in power, what they would attempt to do. When you look at regimes across in years past, how they've killed millions of people. Communism and socialism has never worked historically. It's always failed. Look at Pol Pot. Look at General Mao. Look at Idi Amin. They made a movie some years ago called The Last King of Scotland with Forrest Whitaker. By the way, I think that was based off of Idi Amin. I was informed. These different dictators, they always fail because the ruling class elite are funding these people behind the scenes, which you don't know, by the way. In many cases, you have to go way high up. But a lot of that is what you see from the mainstream media. Keep in mind, you want to do thorough investigation. Don't trust what the mainstream media is telling you. Use critical thinking and do your own investigation. Don't take my word for what I'm saying at all. Trust me, do your research, and you'll come back and say, hey, I see what he was talking about, by the way. And I always say that. That's why I put that disclaimer in there. So thank you for the comment. Lisa Sweezy says, thank you for your information. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate you. Lisa Julian says, when RV happens, will we be screwed if status not changed? No, I don't think so. Remember, just like I kind of went over earlier, how they're what's the term? When I went over the discharge, how the discharge had been weaponized. But keep in mind, there's a debtor and creditor side to the Social Security card. So there's a public side and there's a private side to the RV. Giving you guys maybe more than what you guys understand, just for the fact that you all have heard of the tier system. You've been hearing about that tier system for years. That proves there's a public side and there's a private side. And then similar to debt discharge, you have to understand, to the all caps, there's a creditor side and there's a debtor side. To that cestacute, there's the auto trust, there's the cestacute trust, just dealing with the front of the Social Security card. That's the cestacute trust. There's the auto trust, that's the numbers without the dashes. There's another, let me see what I can't think right now. There's 3 different types of trust, just dealing with the numbers, with the name, all caps on the front. And there's a different trust that the county deals with, the CAFR funds, just from the versus the court system. It's a separate portal. So keep that in mind. That's why there's different processes in these procedures, by the way. I know that's why I said this information can get meticulous, but no, Lisa, read between the lines. You have to figure out, I'm not sure what status you're at, what paperwork, what documents you've done. You have to figure that out, by the way, if you've been keeping up with the information.
But if you want to learn more information about where I can go into more details, that's where you would, if you set up a private consultation with me, I can go into more details about your question more specifically. Some things I think it's too public. I've already given you guys drops some really heavy jewels. Some things I spoke in code about, but I can go more in depth if you set up a private consultation to answer that question. MF says, Dorsey, what up, my brother? When me and Mune, I'm not sure what that last part you were saying. Greetings to you, MF. Maximus Andromeda says, Coinbase just took a huge investment from BlackRock. I heard about that deal, by the way. And I know about BlackRock as well. They are like a super conglomerate. BlackRock had also been causing some trouble too, by the way. They had been buying up a lot of homes. They actually had this on the liberal media, by the way. You guys still wonder, I know you guys get on me like, Dorsey, you poo-poo the mainstream media, but don't they talk about some good things? Yeah, I'll give them credit when credit is due. And here's one of the things this ties in with what Andromeda's mentioned about BlackRock. Since he brought BlackRock up, I was informed that I happened to catch this on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt not too long ago. Several days ago, they did a video and talked about private equity firms, and which I talked about earlier in this video, super conglomerate corporations. And you gotta figure out who's running these corporations and who owns them. Will tell you who your enemies are, who you need to pay attention to. Sometimes, just saying. They were buying up a bunch of homes. They said in the Houston area, places across the country, causing high rent prices, which in turn causes people to become homeless, people to suffer, people to have food shortages because they can't afford to put food on their table, stuff like that. BlackRock is directly connected to. Also was informed by my other private source that they were doing some other things to bully or threaten corporations that didn't follow the cabal's agenda. So I do get that, but I want to poo-poo. I'm not going to say poo-poo, but I want to clarify, because you have those that'll say, well, cryptocurrencies are decentralized. It's look at it as like a lesser of two evils. It's not going to solve everything, because one day the cabal is going to come in and control that. That's what Bo Pony talks about, or he's talked about, where they're going to regulate it when they create their internet ID. That's down the road sometime. I don't know when, but that's when it's going to get real bad. But it's cryptocurrency is another high level elusive scheme they created. And keep in mind, I always go back to, how did some people know about cryptocurrencies earlier on? How did certain people know that, like years ago, that Bitcoin was going to do so well? Now, I get it. Some people were smart, did their research, but some people were on the inside. How did they get this information while a bunch of us, rest of us, shouldn't be working these 9-to-5 jobs anymore, and we're supposed to be funded from private events that we attended that we never got funded from, or never received these delays from our currency revaluation that we've been waiting for? Why is that? And you notice when that individual I mentioned that's been in the news lately, I noticed I didn't say his name at all, but you guys can figure out who I'm talking about. Notice that guy, my friend said they're going after his money. So think about, what have they been doing to us all these years? Why are we not fighting back the way we should be fighting back? Those of us that are involved in this redemption education, those of us that study sovereignty, freedom, status correction, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't get into that semantics when people, that's just another way to divide us, just like the flat earth theory. That's just used. You got to understand those things are used to divide people, because at the end of the day, remember the Georgia Guidestones before they knocked them down, and that may be an inside job. I was informed privately. I don't know what actually happened, but remember they said they wanted to reduce the world's population on the Georgia Guidestones. That meant they wanted to maintain the population down to 500 million. That means a lot of people got to go, but that means they're against a lot of that. Means they want to take out a bunch of people. So you got to figure out who is they, who is implementing. But when you understand the infrastructure they're using, I would say BlackRock is part of that infrastructure, by the way. Just something to think about. Like, think about it,
So I do get that good information, the Andromedas. I'm aware Coinbase made that deal. I know they say it's going to be good for cryptos, people that are involved, but I'm also thinking about how they coming up with this scheme to wipe out the poor. And notice they point the finger at Republicans, conservatives, but they keep the finger. A lot of Democrat liberals and liberal policies are what led to this inflation we're going through. These high gas prices. When Trump left office, gas prices were averaged at $2.30 a gallon. And notice in some places they still already went over $5, $6, $7 a gallon. Notice, look at Biden's policies. What is he doing? But he claims to build back better. What is people, and they voted for this guy. And I'm just saying, I'm not a registered voter, but I still pay attention, just putting my way in, because I have all these people during election time. If you guys are wondering why I brought up election fraud sometimes, I can't really go in depth, or I'm not going to talk about that as I normally do, because you guys already know what'll happen. But the reason I bring that up, because every cycle, whenever there's a major election cycle, I would get these women, these people to say, oh, you need to get out and vote, or if you don't vote, that's going to be a vote for Trump, all this bullshit. But yet these same people were silent on a bunch of issues that the economy's facing now. They're not even talking about, but it was such a big problem when Trump was in office. But our economy was doing much better than what it is now when he left office. But he never gets any credit because he's a Republican, and there's this stereotype that all Republicans are supposed to be for the rich, that Democrats are for the poor. But it's much deeper than that. I look at a person's policies just like I looked at Obama's policies. And they say a lot of people that actually supported Obama, a lot of black people, minorities, became Trump supporters because they saw Obama didn't do anything his second term. There's people that say, oh, he could have did something. He had control of the House and Senate in his first term. I found out behind the scenes, someone who's tried to help the black community for years, Dr. Claude Anderson, who I explained to a friend of mine, is credited for affirmative action, by the way, that helped a lot of black women, people get in corporate America, college, universities. That Dr. Claude Anderson worked on legislation that created affirmative action. It was meant, because we didn't fully receive reparations, it was meant to try to help repair the damage, which only put a Band-Aid on things, because the black community never received reparations. The damage was never repaired. Back in the 60s, when Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, that only put a Band-Aid on things. And he knew. That's why he said, I'll have those N-words, quote on record, not my words, but some liberals know this. I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Got liberals that are still aware of this and admitted this to me. Just look it up. I've seen the videos. They won't talk about how Martin Luther King started speaking against the Vietnam War. They won't show you those videos. YouTube may have removed them. I don't know if they're still up, but I saw them on YouTube. And when he gave his last speech, they won't show that version, but they'll tell you, oh, if Martin Luther King was alive today, he would be a liberal. But they don't tell you he was a registered Republican. He was working with John F. Kennedy, similar to how Dr. Benjamin Carson was working with Trump. And also Dr. Robert Johnson, who started BET, Black Entertainment Television, a billionaire that sold it to Viacom. He also supports reparations as well. And he's a billionaire, multi-billionaire, and was working behind the scenes, but on behalf of the black community. But because a lot of black people, let me say, I have to get on my own people sometimes, are ignorant and trust the mainstream media and won't do thorough investigative research, then you won't know that the Democratic Party was created, the Ku Klux Klan, the Democratic Party burned down Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because that's when the Ku Klux Klan at the time, their chapters were at the highest peak. They came from other states, by the way. When you study the history of the South, that was the Confederacy. Some say they flipped. This is where I disagree. Dr. Claude Anderson was partially correct, and he was partially incorrect. I'm very well studied historically. Project Veritas did an undercover investigation before Trump was elected. They went to black pastors and explained to them, showed them private video footage of white liberals that were Democrats working for Hillary Clinton that said very disparaging remarks about black people. This is facts. Saw that. They had the evidence. James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. They're investigative reporters. So this is why I'm back up what I'm going over. To back up, if you guys want to see the receipts, and I know some people don't want to hear this information when I get to talking about but this all ties in with what's going on today, the wealth disparity in the black community, economic empowerment, by the way, because they used the black community first as a catalyst. Alex Jones even mentioned this in a broadcast some years ago, uh, where they go after other communities. George Soros recently bought up Univision, and I was informed he bought up other media organizations in the Hispanic Latin community and gave them marching orders to not support just the Republican Party in general because they want to weaponize Texas and put your boy Beto O'Rourke in, who's with the New World Order cabal, just like Ocasio-Cortez, the Squad, Ilmar Ohan, who else? Rashida Tlaib. These are New World Order deep state globalists. Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Chucky Schumer. These are people are heavily embedded and bringing in, helping the ruling class elite, bring in a one world police state, totalitarian government. This is not hearsay. This is not conspiracy theory. Everything is not a theory. Remember, theory is something that's theoretical. Those are two separate words. But this is an actual conspiracy. People can conspire, by the way. So understand that they created that term, those two terms back in the 60s, by the way, the FBI or the CIA, when they wanted to cover up the Kennedy investigation. This is a historical fact. You can look it up, research it. I just can't remember because it's split. Some people say it's the FBI, the CIA. I know it's one of the two organizations, but they're both like brother and sister. They're hand in hand. And I'm not saying all the people that work for the FBI or CIA are bad. There are some good people that mean well. Understand they've been infiltrated. They've been hijacked. And when you understand about these secret societies, these Masons, some of these cabal people, they're going to protect each other. They're going to look out. Remember, justice, they want justice is not truly what the word means. Remember, just us is just them, just us. Not you, but them and their minions sometimes. Doesn't always mean you. So if they can cover up and protect one, because they did many, I can name many far more egregious crimes that Democrats did than Trump. That they was talked about, that people are still walking free, like Hillary Clinton. Why is she still free? And bodies, people are still coming up dead. And this is a fact. Even some liberals admit they know her and her husband Bill are gangsters. I hear stories go way back. They even killed their own or people that used to be allies with them. That guy years ago, what's the name of that black guy? Ron Brown. They used to be the Commerce Secretary, died in that plane crash, was killed. They had an autopsy, a separate doctor did an autopsy and found a bullet hole in him after he actually survived the plane crash in the Balkans overseas. And they did something to hijack or shoot his plane down because he was going to expose, allegedly, this was before my time, but I heard he was going to allegedly expose some stuff, and he was during Clinton's administration. Also found out when the Lewinsky thing happened, the guy that exposed Clinton, exposed the Lewinsky scandal, had missiles fired at his house, and they hit the wrong house. And a person described government vehicles showed up. An individual told me this privately, shared this with me, that fortunately no one was there. They hit the wrong home, but the guy they intended, they hit one of his neighbors' homes. And what was described on scene is that government vehicle showed up. These are real stories, guys. I don't make this stuff up. I have legitimate sources. I have people with top secret security clearances. I didn't know this originally, but you can't accuse everything of being a conspiracy theory. So, and you have those relatives of people that talk boule-ish or talk like this, understand sometimes they're part of the cover-up. And sometimes they're showing you that what their true colors are, what side they're on. They're working for the other side. But keep in mind, we're all in this together. They want to depopulate the world's population. This so-called pandemic was not a coincidence. I call it a pandemic. The way it was brought in, they've affected the supply chain. You already had. I was just discussing where I'm at now with the truck driver earlier at one of the sites I'm at, and how there was already a shortage of workers going back to the baby boomers. When you talk about the supply chain shortage being affected, there was already, because you had a lot, I mentioned to him, you already had a lot of baby boomers retiring. He said he's actually about to put his papers in like 5 years or whatever, because there was already a shortage. So when a lot of people died, he mentioned from the you-know-what, that added even more of a strain to the supply chain overall. Think about it. You see, you guys got to use critical thinking. You see how I'm going over the way I explain things, the way I break things down. I know some of you guys, you all like that. Lisa Julian says 2020 says he is on Telegram. Okay, I'm wondering. I think are you referring to David Strait? That's what I'm assuming you may be referring to. Lisa Julian says thanks for the info. The Lady Tech in the building. Peace to you, Lady Tech. Thank you for joining. Rashawn Elam says at Lisa Julian, I believe we need to have our statuses corrected before the reset, or we will be screwed. People think America is going back to a republic. I don't believe they are. Or type, that's a typo. Good input, Rashawn. I think there's definitely some truth to what you're saying. Because we never knew, as we were trying to figure out how they're going to go about the way they're going to, if they go about this collapse. Because I know TNT used to mention on his dinar calls that you will be the new middle class, he would say. So that means how bad that depends on how bad the hyperinflation would get. That's if they raise like gas prices to $8-10 a gallon, then we're talking about we haven't hit 10, but we've seen. I know Pastor Lindsey Williams said some years ago that gas prices would hit $8 a gallon, and we've already seen that. Like places like California, some other places, the inflation, cost of living is different. But I know Pastor Lindsey Williams, and that's already kind of manifested, and we can see the writing on the wall that is possible. $8-10 a gallon. Not that I'm not wishing for that. I'm just saying. But he said that if you're familiar with Pastor Lindsey Williams, go and check out his DVDs, his work, and I believe he has a YouTube channel as well. But check out his DVD called Secrets of the Elite. You want to check that out. If it's still up on YouTube, you can watch it for free. Well, he also has a YouTube channel, by the way. Says Rashad Elam says, I don't believe that's where America is headed. Okay, good input. Appreciate your input. Sandra says, Papo in my county is messing with reports. Good, laugh all loud. Boys, Freemasons, KKK was big. Now is the next county kamikaze kapasi kamatatis. Last is very bad. Supremacy gang. The system's flipped backwards. Okay, I think I get what you're saying, what you're alluding to. Yes, there is a connection with all that posse comitatus. I have to look up. I actually asked a friend of mine what that meant. Again, some of these terms I forget, but they go way back to the 90s and stuff. Because it's weird. What's funny is my mother actually taught me about the New World Order. That's how I know about the Bible Prophecy Club. She taught me about the Mark of the Beast and the Antichrist, and about the New World Order, and what else? Who else I know about? That's how I know about Pastor Lindsey Williams. I think I learned about him from someone else, but he was connected to the Bible Prophecy Club some years ago, and they still have a YouTube channel. Stan Johnson, he used to bring in different guests from around the country. I think he does. They don't do that anymore, and they would visit, and they would send out. They used to have a newsletter some years ago. And we would go see different speakers, and some of them were modern day biblical prophets. Some of them would give intel information about things kind of like similar to today, similar to what Bo Pony does. If you're familiar with Jay Snit Ford's channel, with his woo friends of John Claude, he had people on like that will come in as guests. That's how I learned about this information. My mother also took me and my younger brother. This was in October of '96 to a New World Order conference in Allen Lincoln Park, Michigan. Back then, I remember because I have a good memory. I was still in high school at the time. The reason I know because the book she bought for me at the time, one of the speakers there I got a chance to meet was a former FBI agent by the name Terry Cook. He was one of the keynote speakers there with the lady named Joyce Riley. And it was another speaker I don't remember, but I remember those two, and I remember Terry Cook. I got a chance to meet him, and he wrote the date in the book. I may have wrote it down, but he autographed the book that I gave. I gave that book to someone some years ago in the early 2000s. I would have still had that book had I not given it away, actually. But I learned it was information in there they talked about that was coming and now it's already here that we see today. He broke down the dollar bill. They had different speakers there that showed what do you call the devices they would use to put implant chips inside of people, stuff like that. But they don't tell you is I learned there was a guest that the Bible Prophecy Club had, a guy by the name of Stu Peters. A lot of Masons, if they're not aware, Masons and Eastern Stars are behind, partially behind the New World Order. By the way, there's a connection to some of them mean well, but they're gatekeepers that have been created to maintain order of society. Because I asked a friend to investigate what is the purpose that meet Freemasons and Eastern Stars, what do they serve? And there's other secret societies above them. Leo Zagami, by the way, in case you're wondering, there's lots of information. There's books out there. Keep in mind, Borders books, Barnes and Noble had books like for like, you know how they would create those dummies books. They would have Freemason for dummies, people that were inquisitive that wanted information about it. They have books out there about that. And Leo Zagami, who's overseas somewhere in Europe, and he's been a guest on Alex Jones's show. By the way, he's gone over good information. He's actually mentioned how he's related to the royal family, by the way, which I wasn't surprised. And he was a Mason himself, and he wrote a book, by the way, on this information. So if you're wondering, a lot of this information, it's already public now. And then I have private sources myself from a very close friend from some years ago. And then there's other people that I've met, by the way, but some people that are also part of the organization, keep in mind, they don't know what they're part of, or they don't understand the higher level. Some of them are learning, some of them do or have found out now. And I heard some of them want to do something about it. By the way, they didn't know, because there's an infrastructure, a pecking order to how that works. And another guy I met years ago at the Bible Prophecy Club, a meeting my mother took me to, was a guy by the name of William Shinoblin, by the way. He's a Christian, born again Christian. And he autographed the original book I purchased, you can still find, called Beyond the Light. Beyond the Light. And he mentioned how one of his mentors years ago was one of the hidden men over each continent. That allegedly there's a hidden man over each continent. So I remember my mother telling me some years ago she was excited about going. I was excited because I saw the newsletter where they were saying there was a guy that he was saying he actually was part of the Illuminati. And he admitted he was a Mason. He was also a Mormon. And he mentioned the infrastructure, how the secret society worked. Because Joseph Smith, who started the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, was a Mormon. And the guy that started the Watchtower Society, Jehovah's Witnesses, Charles Taze Russell, was not only a Freemason traveling man, he was also, I found out, belonged to a Rosicrucian society. He was a Rosicrucianer. He belonged to a Rosicrucian chapter, I believe, out of Philadelphia. Have to look up the history. And Albert Pike, who was one of the founding fathers of the Ku Klux Klan, not the only one I heard allegedly, but William Shinoblin mentioned him in his book called Beyond the Light. You have to get the book. You might be only able to find it on Amazon, or I had to order. I got mine off of eBay. I had to reorder it because I let a guy borrow it some years ago, and I never got it back. And I heard allegedly there's a saying that because if he saw that I wasn't a Freemason, that he took the book from me because I didn't have a right, he felt, to have that book, or to cover, they feel like to cover the light, or they're told to keep the secrets. He kept the book. I didn't get it back. But allegedly, I heard he tried to get the book back. But the church that there was a church being built. He was connected to this pastor that was having a church being built. But there was some satanic activity going on in this town or this city. And they were connected to the police. So they kept this church from being built. And he said, I believe his story was accurate. I take him for his word. That's what he told my mom, because I followed up with it for years, tried to get, but I eventually figured out some years later, some years ago, actually not too long ago, when I was basically still at my same place I stay at now. I just ordered it off of eBay. And actually someone put a note in the book, said, thank you for purchasing. They wrote a letter. They were very appreciative, by the way, me purchasing that book. So that was the second copy I bought. By the way, it's called Beyond the Light by William Shinoblin. And I found out he was spoke with the Bible Prophecy Club some years ago. I saw him in person, by the way, a meeting my mother took me to. That's why I find it odd that I feel today, I know she's very liberal, that I just find it interesting. Like, you can't see that they're using, when she watches MSNBC and CNN, that they're using those people, the New World Order, the ruling class elite, are using those people as minions to do their bidding. They reading from teleprompters. But unlike the independent media or independent journalists, which I'm balanced and I'd like to check out as well, that mentions information that mainstream media will not cover, they're not censored. But that's one of the reasons why they want to shut them up. And that's why, to sum up, that's why they're coming after and going after a certain individual. And I may upload the video soon or down the road, depending on what happens, that'll explain why they're going after that certain individual. But I was thinking about doing a separate video on that situation. But you guys know I did mention a couple times earlier, by the way, but that's why they're going after that particular individual, because they want to shut the flow of information down. That's why it's critical you guys continue to spread the word. That's why it's an information war. So make sure you go to band.video, go to InfoWars. If you can't pull up band.video, because I heard some people's computers, they're blocking the URL address. You also have censoredbyjack.com, freeworldnews.tv. There's our other alternate links that'll take you in. And make sure if you have deep pockets or you're a high roller out there, you support him. He needs your help more than ever. Of course, just don't give up, because they're trying to vilify him and demonize him. What's happening? He's dug in, and there's listeners, people that are dug in the trenches. But I do believe I trust him more so than I trust the mainstream media. More so, I would say, than I trust Dr. Fauci or any of those other people that were pushing that poison on us. I would say that on the record. And I still didn't take that poison, by the way. But I know people that have, and people that have told me privately, by the way, that have been affected by it, that had major side effects. I was just informed by one sister I just met, and I got to follow up. I'm going to reach out to her. I may text her, see if she's still up after I get off. If she's not listening, by the way, she told me her sister got vaccinated and was very affected, like in a pool of blood, like they were covering up the VAERS reports that people that had, there was numerous people that had major side effects from that. And it was a massive cover up. But you have to ask the question, why is that? I won't go into details, but you guys can read between the lines. So let me read the rest of these comments. It says, Sandra says, not the negative truth. Okay. Verizon just kicked OWN off their lineup. They suck. I think I heard about that. Yeah, OWN was kicked off before. They're doing things. What that is it's coming from, it's a combination that is part of this agenda that members of the ruling class elite, the World Economic Forum, which I found out allegedly just merged with the United Nations. No, I think it's the World Health Organization, or it's the World Economic Forum. One of the two just merged with the United Nations. So if you didn't hear about this from CNN or MSNBC, you got to question that. Look it up. I hear the UN just merged with one of these big entities, and they're all tied in with one of the World Economic Forum, Davos Group, Klaus Schwab, Jean-Claude Juncker. By the way, it's another, I hear this other guy I was learning about is very evil as well, but I don't want to, what I'm saying? I don't remember the guy's name. I just know, I won't say his last name, but I heard he was an advisor to one of those guys I mentioned. Said very interesting, but these people have an agenda. It's more devious than I thought, but that's part of their agenda. They want to shut down any opposition, and they want to make, because they're pushing that's why some call it the democratic socialist agenda. And you notice why within that party, it's become more radicalized. And certain individuals within that particular political party are referred to as socialists, because there's an agenda. Like, you got to watch that green movement. I found out anybody pushing that green movement is pushing Klaus Schwab agenda. He wants everybody if they're successful, they'll be able to put regulations in. That's what's causing your meat prices to become higher at the grocery stores, because Klaus Schwab said on record, these are not my words, he wanted people eating bugs and roaches by the year 2030. He says, you will own nothing, you will be happy. That's his part of their agenda. But they're saying, part of this so-called green movement that's part of shutting down coal mines, which they're calling fossil fuels and things of that sort. Not just here in the United States, but on a worldwide scale. And I heard Germany is going to be affected because they're over there in that part of the world where the most evil ruling class elite are at. They're already in Europe. So don't be surprised if you hear on the news about Germany, what they're going through because of the war and things. But those are decisions that are being made. When I discuss this is the individual that has this show. The ruling class doesn't like the fact that he discusses the real information. He'll show the documents. He'll show the articles worldwide, different sites. If it's from the London Guardian or, Zero Hedge or Gateway Pundit. You got many different types of independent media organizations to cross-reference, to get the accuracy, the authenticity. But you got to be careful. Just don't buy all the Kool-Aid, drink all the Kool-Aid. If you do watch CNN, MSNBC, I mean, I do like the positive reports. Like, I'll give them credit when I mentioned earlier, when somebody mentioned BlackRock's name and I mentioned how Lester Holt, I like that was a good video. They did something needs to be done about that. I appreciate what Jay Magnus Ogunaki with Color of Change, what they're doing. But I think of course, there's obviously things we don't agree with, but there is a reason behind that wealth disparity. Some of what I kind of went over that I agree with reparations, just like Robert Johnson, well, some may not know, he was one of the first black billionaires that sold BET to Viacom. He actually met with Trump several times, and he sincerely meant well for the black community. He was also good friends with Hillary Clinton before Trump came into office, by the way. Just keep that in mind. He didn't really know Trump too well, what I understand, but it was mentioned he was close friends with Hillary, by the way, before Trump came into office, and he wanted to find out, other than the propaganda that the media was pushing out. See, these are people that he took action. You see, he's already a billionaire. See, he's not going to just buy the Kool-Aid like some people in the middle class, are just people that are puppets that just buy or drink the Kool-Aid, the Jim Jones drink, what they're told. Do your research and investigate. That's why I tell you guys, don't take my word for what I'm telling you, but make sure you do your research. You'll find out. But yeah, that's some good information, Lisa. That's bold what OWN did. I hope they continue to fight, maybe even sue down the road, by the way, and others can get on board. Those out there that have deep pockets or high rollers out there that can help OWN out, because that's an agenda. They want to suppress the information. That's part of what they're obviously doing. That's a no-brainer. I heard it was some other networks or something they're doing that with, because they're mad. They want to push their one-sided agenda, which is a one world order, new world order, a one world government, a mark of the beast, 666. They're free Masonic cult. They're a cult. That's what it is. They want to push their one-sided agenda, and Soros has a lot to do with that. I wonder why he's not being investigated. I'm wondering, where is he getting all these billions from? Why he's not being investigated for money laundering or securities fraud? How is he doing? How is he donating? And others, not just him, but others. I want to know, why is he not being investigated? And I asked that question some years ago when I was part of that event, and I wanted to know why they cut our black cards off. I said, I feel like that's not fair. And I told the individual when I was on that private call that it's people like George Soros that can access his money, but I need to access my fucking wealth. You see, punk devils, wicked demons. See what I mean? I'm sorry, it get personal sometimes. I rant, guys. I know. I'm sorry, but it just comes. You guys, if you guys were in my shoes, you will understand my frustration, my pain. But you see the hypocrisy. What is George Soros? What is he doing for humanity? I could use that money to pay people's bills, property taxes off, or help people with their rent. Stuff like that. You got to think about it. Why is George Soros putting all this money into things that are not, really helping people? In a time of crisis that we're in right now, with all that wealth that he has, all those billions. And I'm like, where is he getting, this from? And how is he able to do this? His taxes or whatever, the books, you see, just questions I have. But anybody else, they'll come down on them hard. They're suing XRP, but see, they're protecting their cronies. But see, there needs to be balance with this. It needs to be balanced across the board, similar to what LeBron James said in basketball. If you watch sports, and he said the referees need to referee all across the board. And I agree with that. It shouldn't be favoritism, and we need to have a well-balanced agenda. If you're gonna go after one, you need to go after the other.
So, just saying, something to keep in mind. Says Sandra says terrible entities were in the last days of hope. The second Exodus comes soon. The 12 tribes of Judah on the remnant will be taken to the promised land. Keep hearts pure. Yes, MJ out slick Paul McCartney. Yes, you were listening earlier. I'm sorry I got to your comment later. By the way, Lisa Julian says the dots connect. Symbolism will be their fall. Yes, Sandra says they use numbers so much, adding them up to use as sacrifices and more. Okay, says Sandra says, how can one get legal help if they're up against the Fed? If one did a thing but didn't realize it, like a money laundering thing, that they didn't know it was a thing, even no lawyer poor. I understand. Check out, if you haven't, make sure you find out who David Jose is and subscribe to his YouTube channel. I'm just saying, look it up, look him up. Go to Jonah Bays, subscribe to his channel, look at his videos, look at others. There is a way, and check out the Stu Peters show. Go on Rumble. But David Jose has been a frequent guest on Stu Peters' show several occasions. I think he's been on there like at least 3 times. So that shows he's credentialed, very well studied. But just there's some things I can't go into details unless you set up a private consultation and things of that sort. I can go more in depth. I've already given a lot on this particular broadcast. Some of you guys have told me in the past I give out too much information, but I appreciate you guys. And if you support the channel, that's when I go more in depth. So big shout out once again to Steve Mayfield. You guys hit the cash up. You support the channel. That's what will cause me to go more in depth, by the way. That's a little secret. You guys show love because that helps out with YouTube trying to suppress my advertising revenue. I should be at thousands right now, already thousands of views. They don't even show me in the suggested section no more. That just shows you because, just saying. So Lisa Julian says factualized trust. Yeah, it's been a minute since we talked about that. Oh, shoot. Money Boy in the building, family. What's good? Thumbs up. Thank you. Appreciate you joining. Money Boy said Lisa Julian says it's on Brighteon. By the way. Okay, I'm gonna have to check out. I don't remember. I'm going over so much information. By the way, I'm gonna have to scroll back up and see what your comment is. Brighteon. Yep, Brighteon. That's another good site too. By the way, I've gone over that site. Thank you for putting that in the chat section. So you guys are still watching. For those out there, go to Brighteon.com. That's another video web hosting platform similar to Band.video. That's Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, who puts out great work. Who also has other other content creators, influencers, and contributors. By the way, if you have a big platform and you're concerned or worried about being censored, these platforms will help protect you. They recognize freedom of speech. And at the same time, if you have deep pockets or you're a high roller, I would recommend you support them to keep the cabal from shutting down voices and shutting down freedom of speech, because we have freedom of speech over here in America, and they do not own us, own our souls like they think they do. Or we'll up the ante. Just keep that in mind. This is what these people literally think. Klaus Schwab and these evil minions, Bill Gates, etc., that are part of this evil, wicked cabal. So thank you, Lisa. Go to Brighteon.com. These are alternative video web hosting platforms that don't censor. So I gave you guys Rumble. Rumble's been growing. Rumble has live now. I know it's a paid version. I heard they're going to have a free version down the road, just like YouTube has. And I found out they actually have a feature that YouTube doesn't have. I think they got picture-in-picture video or something like that. One guy was mentioning. So Rumble is growing exponentially. So you're going to have other platforms out there. Just keep in mind to be mindful of, as a backup. Get on these other. You got alternatives to Twitter. You have Truth Social. You've got another one called Getter. Look up Getter. You've got Gab. Look up Gab. Let me see what else. FrankSpeech.com. Look up FrankSpeech.com. I got to sign up for Frank Speech and Getter. I signed up for Truth Social. by the way. I haven't been on. I got to get on there. So many platforms to keep up with. I'm on Parler. I'm still on Parler. Because, if I'm going to have an Instagram account or have a Facebook account and they censor and they're part of the cabal, then then you should have an independent social media site that doesn't censor, that obeys the law, that recognizes freedom of speech, supports freedom fighters and lovers of freedom and free thinkers. So it would behoove you to make sure you support these platforms like Truth Social, Frank Speech, Getter, Gab.ai with Andrew Torval. Big shout out to the work he's doing. And many others out there. Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, Brighteon, also BitChute.com, Rumble.com. Yes, and I appreciate all those that are in the fight. Yes. So just wanted to share that with you guys. That's love. You guys help keep me on my toes. Says he loves me, he loves me, he loves me, he loves me not. Flower. All right, thank you, Sandra. Lisa Julian says, Alex, it was good. Yeah, Money Boy Film says, facts. Lisa Julian says, I could send to you on Telegram. Thank you. I'm on Telegram too. I think I'm under, I have to figure out what name I'm under. I may be under John the Third or something like that. My first part of my government name is part of my Telegram account or my Telegram name. Something, maybe John Allen Third or John the Third, something like that. I don't have a profile on there. Yeah, like a profile picture. I mean, I have a profile, but not a profile picture. And I'm part of some other groups on Telegram. I periodically log in from time to time. Like sometimes I don't really check my text messages that much. I got to respond to different things, like domestic duty, stuff like that. But I prefer to speak to people over the phone. I'm kind of from the old school, if you understand. I don't really do the text messages thing too much. By the way, I do emails, but I don't really do the text message, like the back and forth. It's just each day and this, that, and other. But I appreciate it, though. I still read them, check them, even if I don't respond. I'm kind of similarly like that on Telegram. But I'm going to have to work on, I'm definitely paying more attention since I have this platform. I definitely do reach out and acknowledge you guys. Some of you all have reached out to me privately when I've been invited on other platforms. Sometimes you guys have recognized me. I recognize some of you guys, some of the names. Big shout out to you guys that support the channel, that stay loyal. I do appreciate you, by the way. And I understand some of you guys have reached out to me, and I don't have no problem with that. That's cool, And I also have consultations set up privately. So if it isn't something, that you need a consult about, that's separate, I am open, but I do have a busy schedule sometimes. It just depends. Just putting it out there. But that should be in the description box after the video uploads and I transfer that data over, by the way. I can set it to automatic. I just haven't got around to updating the other information. And I have to do that with StreamYard, by the way. Lisa Julian says, what happened in court with him was priceless. Yeah, I saw part of it. I watched part of the hearings. I saw how they were trying to railroad him up front. And they're talking about that's a witch hunt too. How they're talking about getting him for perjury. You could clearly see he was being compliant. He turned his text messages over to the lawyers. They made a mistake and gave it to the prosecutor. And that guy, whoever that prosecuting attorney, I could tell even the way it's an act. I was told that years ago. That's why I don't contract or try not to contract in their jurisdiction if I can avoid it. And that's why I still need to update my status correction. Some of the things I went over earlier, by the way, that's important because, and that's why they don't want to allow people to become free, because they also are making money off of people as well. It's a racket. That's what Jordan Maxwell talked about. It's a court, like a tennis racket. The ball goes back and forth. Or basketball court, the ball goes back and forth. Or hockey, you have a goal. It's a racket. If you heard of racketeering, the courts, they're some of the biggest gangsters. They don't talk about banksters are some of the biggest gangsters that's out there. The biggest gang other than just drug dealers. So let's see here. Sandra says, Cabal owns this. Lisa says, devil minions run this. Devil minions. Yes, you are right. Lisa says, speak it, brother. Sandra says, they're suggesting us to eat human flesh now on some news. I have a few on not sure if you said Telegram or television. Sick yeah, that is some sick stuff. Yeah, I've been aware they're in that what do you call they're cannibalist cabal. Remember, it was rumored some years ago when those so-called Pizzagate conspiracies were coming out, where they were saying that it was believed to be allegedly, some people believe when Hillary, when she was running, that remember she was shaking, she had that similar to Tourette's syndrome. Some people believe that she was suffering from a condition that's caused by people that have eaten human flesh, cannibalism. I forget what the condition is called. You can possibly look it up. They have educational videos on YouTube about it, what that condition is called. But some people believe she was caught. But they believe she suffered from that condition because there's another alleged story that her and Huma Abedin were on the dark web scanning the little girl's face that they were seeing in the video. Only certain people saw it. Allegedly, it was circulated when, remember some years ago when Anthony Weiner's laptop was seized by the NYPD police and they were supposed to hold a press conference and they turned the information over to the FBI and the FBI didn't investigate it. See, that's something else earlier because you also got the Hunter Biden situation, his laptop, that Green Beret, former Green Beret that worked as a computer guy mentioned how he turned that information over to the FBI. That's a separate situation, similar to Anthony Weiner. So you got to ask the question, these people have done far more egregious crimes than Trump or Alex Jones has ever committed, but they're still walking free. Even Obama dealing with the surveillance, with the Pfizer, the Pfizer warrant, the Five Eyes and James Comey and all that, that was criminal. You know, the whole Russiagate thing, I heard, did you know General Flynn is suing, by the way, I heard, suing the Justice Department a significant amount. And they discovered, remember Mueller, he concluded that investigation, they got off, by the way, because there was no collusion. That was created because they were mad that their darling lost at the time. Well, they didn't cheat enough. They still cheated for her. Like in Michigan, they found Monica Palmer, who was refusing to certify the election, did mention in the original term 60% of the precincts were imbalanced. Whereas the second go around, she said 70% of the precincts were imbalanced, but her and William Hartman were threatened. William Hartman retracted his certification. All they needed was 3 to win. Monica Palmer was lied to, said she was going to get a forensic audit by the Secretary of State. Jocelyn Benson, who I knew Jocelyn Benson lied, and even the guy that was the head of the Republican board canvassers, whoever that black guy was, I remember Jocelyn Benson was looking all nervous in that video. I went back on YouTube to look up. This is what they did, and they tell you it's no voter fraud that happened. I just go tell a friend, I can go with that to prove they threaten these people on national TV, and our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, did nothing. Bullshit. So I have facts on the record. There's major facts. Liberals have done far more worse crimes, more egregious than Alex Jones or Trump or Republicans or what do you call these other people? Was the former Rudolph Giuliani? I can make an argument there's a long laundry list of things that Democrats have done that's been corrupt. But there's some things I heard about and I'm skeptical of. I'll still see how things play out. But some of you guys already know. But just what I mentioned, you got Anthony Weiner's laptop. Just look at who Ghislaine Maxwell was friends with. Remember, she got 20 years. Still, I think it was a slap on the wrist. R. Kelly got 30 years. I think they were both guilty of what they did. But look at Epstein and look at who they were friends with. Look at the what do you call the paperwork, by the way, that they had when you had that came out as the whistleblowers leaked out the Lolita Express. That was the name of that plane that went to Epstein's private island. Remember, he ended up getting killed. So you can't tell me that's fraud. But these people are still walking free. But they telling you that this dude Trump and Alex Jones are so corrupt.
You know, notice you got to use critical thinking. Why are they focusing on these two guys, but they're not focusing on Clinton's situation, her ties, John Podesta, the guy Seth Rich that was killed that worked for the DNC. That was a massive cover up. Hunter Biden's laptop. This is just ridiculous. And Anthony Weiner, that's how they found out about the Pizzagate. That whole situation came about. A lot of people don't know that was the NYPD police. They were just told to stand down, and they were threatened at the time by Obama's Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, who admitted at the time she was actually caught when she met with President Clinton. That violated a particular rule, and she admitted. She said, I probably wasn't supposed to do that when she went on that tarmac and met with Bill Clinton. But she threatened the NYPD police that she was going to come down with charges. This is where they're using the social justice stuff as a weapon with the Eric Gardner situation. She threatened to press charges similar like they're using with the Breonna Taylor situation if the NYPD police, which was a separate incident, released the Anthony Weiner laptop that had all the evidence that showed that DC Hollywood was all connected to a international child sex trafficking ring. How the fuck do you think they took down Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Idiots don't. Well, excuse me. Let me stop. But I'm just saying, don't connect the dots out there. Some of you guys already know, are smart enough to know. But a lot of these dum-dums who claim this is conspiracy theory, a lot of these idiots that say everything's a conspiracy theory, and I just connected the dots for you guys just to look up. But of course, they don't want me. I'm not going to go in depth because that's alleged. That's all alleged. And I did give a disclaimer. That's allegedly now. But I'm just saying, you got all this evidence, but this witch hunt, they want to focus on Alex Jones and Trump every day. But we'll see how things play out down the road. But very interesting when these people have done way far worse, I would say, in my humble opinion. Says Lisa Julian says, yeah, they want our guns. Oh, that's another agenda. Yeah, they definitely they want to ban the guns. I can clearly see that. And that's another topic that YouTube, they don't want people talking about. A lot of the false flag incidences. That guy, I think, went by the term channel Red Silver. I heard he's not on YouTube anymore. I heard he got tired of it. He could have, if he's still around, or some of you guys out there know him, tell some of these people they can go to Rumble and do their content from there and build some of those people that were pumping out videos like every day, because there's big money to be made on Rumble now. There's a guy that kicked off, I said his name earlier, by the way, who's now on Rumble. And what he used to make on YouTube, he's getting the advertisement revenue now on Rumble. And he actually used to work. He mentioned for CNN and another major mainstream network. He started his own platform, by the way. So you guys want to talk about, I said down the road, I do have a Rumble account and I'm still working on it because I'm very busy. I'm working on other things as we speak, several other things. And if I'm freed up, I can do content on those particular topics. But there's 4 topics that will get your video snatched down quick. One of those topics is talking about false flags. Another topic is talking about Pizzagate. Another topic is talking about voter fraud, election fraud. Another topic is talking about the vaccines. Those 4 topics alone by themselves can get videos just removed. That's how biased. And I know they have agents and minions out there, possibly listening or watching out there. But I'm just saying, something to keep your eyeglasses on. That's why I don't go as in depth as I do. But I have evidence I can go very in depth. And just like there's others that are more coded than I am. And there's millions of people out there that know this information that I'm going over to be accurate, to be real. Because how would I know about it? I asked the question, how would I know who Ruby Freeman was in Georgia if it didn't happen? There's a saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. If I can see the smoke, and even though I can't physically see the fire, but I can see the smoke, it's coming, a big cloud of smoke. If there's a fire and you can smell it, then that means there's definitely a fire. So how the fuck would I know who Ruby Freeman is if nothing happened, if it was all hunky-dory? And this relative was telling me they count the Republican votes first before they. I said, you buying into that bullshit that MSNBC tells these fantastic bubblegum and flower stories to make this shit sound good. But I get the real information, and I get it. Some people would choose to be puppets and believe the mainstream media. after this individual taught me about the New World Order and the mark of the beast and the Antichrist, I just find it odd that they buy and soak into the man. If they really believe that, they must be really brainwashed, so they playing along with it. I don't know. They got me fucked up. I'm just saying. But I'm very well studied, and I know what's right. I know what's wrong. I have massive common sense on a massive level. I have major common sense. But they're going to continue to gaslight us and tell us. But that's why I just say I stay balanced. I pay attention to both. Mainstream media, keep your close eye, but definitely keep up with what's going on with the independent media. Lisa says the cabal wins when owns mainstream media. Yes, I said that earlier. Lisa says, how do I set up ? Okay, if you're talking about those other platforms, or you mean consultation, after the video, or you can go to my previous videos. It should be in the description section. I also mentioned a while ago that I'm going to start doing a lot of my videos from another platform. I already have the infrastructure set up, but I'm working on content over there because it's going to be structured differently. I already have what's called an intake link, depending on how things work out over there. As once again, it's going to take me some time because I have to put together material. I have to be like the producer, writer, editor, all of those things. A friend of mine was telling me he keeps up with a lot of that stuff. I don't keep up with like a lot of the mainstream actors, movies, stuff like that, producers. He watched the credits all the way at the end. I don't keep up with all those things. Well, but as being a content creator, an influencer, and also someone that wanted me to contribute to the school, and they also wanted to help me out as well to get students in. I have a lot of material, good material, that hasn't been talked about by some gurus, people that are highly advanced. I have some very good material that I can piece together. By the way, it'll just take some time, but I have the material. I have some notes bookmarked. I even have certain sites bookmarked, and I went over. I gave the individual I was working with, she knows, a sneak preview. And then she mentioned how I will be able to put that into a course. So you guys will be able to support me as well. Because I know Currency 365 has suggested, hey, Dorsey, you should set up a subscription service or something. This would be able to knock out all birds in one stone, because it would keep me from having to create a Patreon. Now, I could still create a Patreon account if you guys still want to support me. Because I know some of you guys said you know would support me if I created a Patreon account. A couple people said that, but this platform is more private, and it has a way for us to communicate as well. And there's an infrastructure. I just have to become more acclimated, but and it's partitioned separately. So, I will be able to, once I get more acclimated, I would be able to do meetings, private calls. It would do with Telegram. All those things could do all in one stone. And you guys could pay a fee or per month, whatever I decide it would be. There can be a separate membership. Now, a portion of that, the cost, of course, is going to go to the school. It's not going to be too expensive, but it's going to be affordable. But depends on what price range some people are in. But what I've worked out with the individual, we're working out down the road. A portion is going to go to be taken out to fund towards the school. By the way, that's going to build the school up. Then you guys will be able to support me at the same time. And then I would have more time once I'm able to be totally free from this plantation. If my other ship doesn't sell through. Now, if my other things come through down the road, depending on, I don't know how things are exactly going to play out. And I'm in a position, because keep in mind, I said, if I was in a position, I would not, if I did steal charge, that would only be for my time, mainly if I had to do paperwork, stuff like that, things that are time consuming. But I have already given a lot of information, a lot of time, in terms of my intellectual property. I wouldn't have a problem working with you guys. And some of you guys, some consults, I'm still in the midst of reaching back to. I feel like I took too long. So one consultation in particular, I told the sister it was no cost because I felt bad. I took too long to reach back to her. So these are surprises I have. Not saying I can do that for everybody, but every now and then, that's how I operate, to give back to you guys privately. I said, told her there's no fees or whatever, XYZ. Now, some people that have the funds, definitely that have the means or ability to pay. You know, if you're able to, you know, I don't solicit, but that's what, to get more information from me or to get me to go into more meticulous details, I will share that information. And if I can't help you, I will direct you to the right source. Like I gave an example of earlier, and the lady, she was actually in the chat section that I helped out earlier. By the way, I had a consultation with, big shout out to her and her mother, by the way. So those are the things I am working on. It'll take me some time. So just still FYI, I'm still getting acclimated with the other platform. The other platform, I'm not as tech savvy when it comes to that, because there's so many different things you could do with adding these apps and stuff like that on, and the way the site is partitioned. But as I become more familiar with it and the process, then you guys, I'll be able to have memberships already. We'll be able to start that, because I also had something separate where if you guys want to pay for a lifetime membership, that will be perks and benefits where you'll have access to me, my telephone number. You'll be able to contact me anytime, ask me any question, any situation you're in, and I will do my level best if I can help you in a situation. If not, most likely, if I don't know that particular situation, I can direct you to the right source, somebody that has a skill set, most likely than not, that I feel is trustworthy. And I gave you guys a powerful jewel earlier, by the way. These are the things that I'm able to do. So just going over it briefly. Tony Benson Mahuka says, aloha, Dorsey. You are very knowledgeable. I'm grateful. Blessings to you. Appreciate you. Says they don't care about the average one. Yeah, I know what you're saying, Sandra. You're right. That's true. I believe. Facts. Bible and guns. Yep, I hear some say more than that. You're gonna need food too. Some say was it bullets, beans, and rice or something like that. But you need food too, because for what's coming down the road. Because they also are intentionally starving us out, by the way. So I'm gonna see if I can get hold on for a second, guys. I'm gonna see if I can get this gate for this truck out here. See if it opens up. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm still here, guys. I'm gonna read the rest of you guys' comments. I know I'm going a while in this video. Do appreciate you all for joining. Lisa Julian says, good take. Took them evil stones. Yeah, the Georgia Guide stones. Yep, I figured that could be an inside job, definitely. By the way. Definitely, no doubt. Because I did see where they bulldozed the rest of them, but I heard the one that was blown up was the American one. One before they bulldozed the rest of them. I heard the American one was the main one that was busted up, by the way, from what I gathered from it. But that could be an inside job. But I've also been informed that there are competing groups, globalist groups competing with one another, by the way. So I don't know exactly all the details, how that's going to play out, by the way, but that's some of the intel that I hear. There's different groups among that faction that's competing, and that could be potentially something that they plan themselves, by the way. Yep, so just something to keep in mind. I'm going to read, once again, I'm going to read the rest of these comments. I'm still going through. It says, watch Safe Daddy, Sale Daddy. You says lightning struck Guy Stones and near White House. Okay, I've heard of that channel before. I think I'm subscribed to him. But it's so many people I'm subscribed to, by the way. I think, and he deletes some of his latest videos too, by the way. Jazzy B says some people that's wishing now that Trump was back in office. Yeah, that's what I heard. Some people have buyer's remorse, by the way. Heard Biden run by Obama wants to sit
in the temple of righteousness, or temple, okay, run by OO. Okay, I'm not sure what you meant by OO. I thought you may have been referring to Obama. I'm not sure. I heard allegedly that Obama was pulling the strings behind the scenes, because he did allegedly, when they said when Trump took office, he had a house he purchased down the street from the White House at the time. And they said no other U.S. president at that time had campaigned against another incoming president, by the way. They said that never had happened before. I'm not surprised, because I know Obama's connection. He's connected to the deep state, Mason, stuff like that, secret societies. Trump, I think only Trump's father, Trump was, he hung around those people because of his billionaire status. He was able to roll in those categories. And of course, other things, he had the prominence, the power that came with it. But I heard allegedly his father was, but Trump never, he was part of the establishment. That's why they were able to undermine him within his own administration, by the way, and have people who were supposed to be his allies turn, double crossed him, stabbed him in the back, like Mike Pence, William Barr, who are establishment, and Bush people, who's part of the cabal as well. It's not a coincidence. Mike Pence, those are establishment people, but I look at them still as lesser of two evils. They're not trying to just break apart the family structure. They are still an extension of the cabal, I would say. They are an extension, but unlike, that's why the liberals see are being used for a more devious agenda, by the way. The Democratic Socialist Party. Sandra says, say it, Dorsey. Okay. Says, you think JFK is alive. Heard he's disguised and backgrounds and will be back to fight. JFK Jr. I've heard those rumors allegedly, Sandra. I did find out some new information. Why, I would say just right now, I'll call it a conspiracy. Why that conspiracy has been connected, associated with this QAnon thing and Trump. Someone shared something, and I said, I think there may be some validity to it. I'm not going to go into details about it because I think it's too sensitive to talk about online, but I figured out something. One of my subscribers I had met that reached out to me. If he still follows my channel, I don't know, Terry down in Georgia, Terry McLaughlin. Wasn't sure how to pronounce his name. I used to say McLaughlin, Terry. Big shout out to, we had a conversation a while ago. He brought that up to me privately when we spoke. But like I said, I'm 50-50 on that. I thought, some years ago, I said he died in a plane crash, but you never know. But I got some newer information about some things, very interesting, that could shed some light. But I'm not going to go into details about that, because unlike Snippy's channel, I think some of these cabal people are watching, and they're trying to counter some of our moves. And I think even some of my relatives, because I said some stuff I believe on my channel was getting all the way back up to President Obama. And I've heard other YouTubers, other content creators describe stuff like this when their content was being borrowed or copied. And I'm not saying it's out of clout chasing, but there are, and I warned you guys, I did videos on this a while ago, that there's gatekeepers. I can't control who sees my YouTube channels, because I do tell you, I do have several relatives that follow me, and I do appreciate them watching my channel because it does give me viewership, maybe helps a little bit with the advertisement revenue. But even though YouTube's drastically reduced that through the censorship, I don't hardly get nothing from that anymore. But several of these relatives I have are liberal, heavily liberal, and all three of them I can think of hate Trump. All three of them, and they all are sisters, by the way. So that's what I have to go through. But I was interested in, there's others, maybe they're able to see the light one day, that this is overall, this is not about red versus blue. This is about good versus evil, and this is about freedom. We have to keep that in mind at the end of the day, because I do know Republicans, they have a bad side. But the reason I say I lean more right, if I was to be a registered voter, I would lean more right because I support the nuclear family structure. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'll say that unapologetically. I support the nuclear family structure. So we have a lot of people, a lot of women getting away with having these babies out of wedlock, pumping babies out like factories, like GM, Ford, and Chrysler. And when guys, we're scrutinized when we have children out of wedlock. We have to pay child support. They come after the system.
comes after us. It doesn't reward us. They get rewarded. You see, that's the big difference I just summed up. And just what I just said. You read between the lines, and I didn't go on to other things. And then I also found out in the black community, they had a secret society. I'll have to do a separate video that empowered the women on purpose to destabilize the men. Because like I said earlier, they go after the men first because the men are supposed to be the alpha males, the leaders of society. So they can destabilize the men, and they also break apart the family structure, the nuclear family structure. So they've gone after the men as well. By the way, there's something to keep that in mind. By the way, that's not a coincidence. They attack the men, and this is why. But specifically in the black community, they have something called Jack and Jill, an organization. I forget. I don't have my notes on me, but it was an organization used to originally empower young girls. They don't really need it like they used to anymore. They made it inclusive with boys, but it's like a boule system with children. And they primarily focused on black girls to initiate them into the secret society infrastructure, get them acclimated as they become adults, similar to how they're pushing this alphabet agenda on children. They had something years ago called Jack and Jill. My good friend of mine, I have got a confirmed private source that confirmed to me he ran and saw them, had a secret meeting at Farmington Hills Library or something, and they were wearing colors in blue. They're called Jack and Jill. They were used in organization. So they pick and choose the winners and losers of society. See, they want to keep this stuff secret. They pick and choose the winners and losers. There's an organization named Jack and Jill, by the way, and they pick and choose the winners and the losers in the black community. They primarily were used to focus on empowering young black girls over, of course, black boys. That's why when I mentioned Dr. Claude Anderson's name, he worked on affirmative action. That was used to benefit black women more so than it was used to benefit black men. In corporate America, she could get a job making more money. They could hire her because she's considered a double minority. She's not only black, but she's also a woman, so they'll pay her less. They meet their quota. Remember, they have quotas where these corporations, they have these woke statutes now. You may know them nowadays as wokeness, but years ago, it was called affirmative action and other things, which the LGBT stole a lot of those rights and things from black people, which we never received reparations. That rainbow was stolen from Jesse Jackson's organization, Rainbow Push, that he started. I was informed privately. Black men were also on the front lines. That's why when you guys hear me frustrated, historically, you guys might not know, black men were on the front lines of everybody else's movement, by the way. Historically, the LGBTQ stole the civil rights movement that black men and women suffered. They fought for. Remember, after Kennedy was killed, Lyndon Baines Johnson, he signed that in office, and I quoted, he said, "I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years." And they knew the plan. But you can't inherit welfare. You can't inherit food stamps and those are government programs, and those are also benefit privileges, contracts. That was done strategically to destabilize the black community. And that's why Gloria Steinem, who led the feminist movement, and this is declassified, this is on record. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is admitted, and this is also declassified records. And she admitted this, that she was sent as an agent by J. Edgar Hoover to infiltrate the black community. She recruited a black woman by the name of Michelle Wallace. So this is why in the black community, black men have been destabilized. And there's a sister who I do highly admire, who's one of a few black women that speaks the real actual truth. And she's also a music artist. I would say more so independent, very beautiful. I could say unapologetically, she's a true queen, a real empress, Erica Lachey. You don't know who she is, check out her channel, Erica Lachey. I would say activist / music artist. She has an Instagram account, very powerful the way she articulates herself, very beautiful queen. She mentions accurate information. Her channel is not mentioning hateful propaganda that black women that are mad at black men. She mentions accurate information that was told to me. She did a video about why black men had a more difficult time in this infrastructure. But check her out. Her name is Erica Lachey. She's an activist, and her information complements what I'm saying. But she mentioned how what they use with the feminist movement, the welfare state they created. They also, there was the factory jobs years ago. They paid more money. by the way, at the time. And what they did was, when affirmative action was implemented, corporate America catered more so to the women more so than men. White women were also able to benefit from affirmative action, if you weren't aware. Just putting this out there, by the way. So this is all tied in with how this web that the deep state has utilized as gatekeepers, even to tie in with the topic of the video I had, to block people. A major reason why some processes, procedures don't work. I'm giving you guys a thorough video, might as well audio, might as well be a webinar to teach you this is what they've done. Now, I'm not saying this as an excuse that you can't achieve what you can achieve, but this makes obstacles, puts obstacles for people that aren't part of sororities, fraternities. This makes it more difficult. Or people that don't know, that are average, everyday people that think they're working hard, they're going to college to get a degree, they were high achievers in school, and they're wondering why they didn't get this particular job or this promotion. Just giving you more insight into things. You know, I'm not making these reasons as excuses like, oh, woe is me, or woulda, shoulda, coulda. That's not what this is. I'm providing education to tie this all in. There's all a connection to all of this stuff that I'm going over. I know some don't want to hear this information, but hey, I have to cover it. I'm going to keep it real at the end of the day, by the way. But yeah, I've heard the rumors about JFK Jr. Don't know, I'm 50-50 on that, but I do see there's some information, I won't go into details, that was brought to my attention about that. And like I say, I don't want, because whatever, you know, they're working on, I don't want that being sabotaged by, you know, cabal people, because they do tune in. I strongly believe and listen to my channel. There's agents, there's operatives, there's gatekeepers, there's minions that are reporting back to their higher ups, best believe. And there's shields, government shields, and there's people on payroll. Look up the FBI's program called InfoGuard. I'm even aware, I may even go in on my personal Facebook page. I did this a couple years ago, and I'm going to deactivate some more people. I don't like having a lot of people on my personal Facebook page. I had that's separate from my Dorsey's resource page. And maybe some of you guys need to do the same thing. If you guys do still have some of these cabal social media outlets, if you're not on other independent outlets out there like True Social or Getter or, you know, list I went over earlier, you may want to go through and do an evaluation. But there's ways I can detect certain agents, gatekeepers, even family members. I've even removed, because just because people have the last name Dorsey, it was I received friend suggestions from some people that had the same last name from a relative, and I'm going to go through my friends list. That's what I'm gonna do again. I'm going to delete a bunch of people that I see, and keep in mind, I'm gonna say this. There's a disclaimer. Some of the people I decide to keep, that's only out of love, or they've actually interacted or commented on my post before. But some people never have commented on my personal page, or they just, I don't know, whatever reason. You know how there's people that just want to add you on and feel like they're part of something. And I get people that want to become, you know, personal with you, but there's some people that you just don't know, that don't have good intentions. And that's what I don't like. I can't tell. There's operatives, there's agents out there that don't mean well. And the thing is, that's evil. And I'm trying to get access to my freedom. I should have got my freedom a long time ago. You know, you guys already know, you can hear it in my voice. It's very frustrating. I shouldn't be where I'm at, but it is for what it is. And I'm gonna roll with the punches. But just be aware, there are agents, and don't put it past. It could be some of your relatives, some of your own close friends. Investigate everybody, because some of the closest ones, when they took out the activists, were in their own camp. Martin Luther King. They even caught a guy on tape that slipped up and said, I moved out the way so they could get a good shot. And he was right in Martin Luther King's circle. And he knew, even before King died, I saw videos before YouTube removed him, where he talked about, because he was part of that Boule infrastructure, but he was working on behalf of the people. And he had Masons. Jesse Jackson was a 33rd degree Prince Hall Freemason, I found out. There were other ministers. They were directly in his circle. But that wasn't the same guy who was on tape. There was another preacher who slipped up on tape. This is on record. Said he moved out the way so they could get a good shot. There's also a book I found out, I don't know the name of it, where a nurse came out as a whistleblower, said he was held down at the hospital and they made him drown in his own blood. He actually survived the initial gunshot wound, allegedly. And they held him down on the table and made sure they killed him. And they flew Jesse Jackson out of Memphis that night.
by the way. I was informed. So this was from Steve Coakley. Did some research on this, did a presentation, rest in peace to, and the Baba, Dick Gregory, and Ashwa Kwesi did a joint presentation with Steve Coakley some years ago, by the way. And also Dick Gregory also did some presentations. If you're wondering where I got this information from, you might still be able to find some of these old videos on YouTube if they haven't removed them. But they remove a lot of this information, and it's documented where there's whistleblowers and people that have come out. There's people that have wrote books and stuff. If you're wondering about where's the validity behind what I'm going over, because people are quick to label stuff as a conspiracy theory. No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy realist. And you also have something called a conspiracy fact. Those are two separate words. People can't actually conspire, but separate the word, the term, you see. But that's where you can cross-reference to look the information up, similar to a research paper, how you have to provide supporting documentation, validity. So, you know, the instructor knows the paper is not plagiarized. I'm giving you guys areas to research. That's how well studied I am. Okay, let me get to the rest of these chats before I shut things down. Man, you guys got a lot of comments in here. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, I know it's one of these nights. I want to get to everybody. I may not. I'm like way behind. Well, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna jump, skip to the bottom of where I was at. Okay. Sandra says, yes, some are witches. Obama says want to move to another country. Portugal is the good one, they say. Okay. Lisa says, good. Took them guy stones. God is moving his hands. Yes, I agree. You totally right. Watch God. God is moving for real. Lisa says, prep, and prep. That's it. I'm out. Great show. Okay, got you. Thank you for joining, Lisa. Friend of mine he's into that discipline of emergency preparedness, is what it's called. When the mainstream media will call it doomsday prepping, that's a red flag. You know, they're trying to poo-poo it. They're trying to make it look like it's conspiracy theory and trying to create this narrative. If they talk like that, it's called emergency preparedness. This is real, because there's going to be food shortages. They know what they did with these supply chain shortages. It's not doomsday prepping. It's called emergency preparedness. That's the proper name of the discipline. Sandra says, okay, God bless. Okay. Lisa says, I will look for you on Rumble too. I will get up with you. My eyes are falling fast night. Oh, and I pay for a live channel on Telegram too. You could do the same night. Yes. Got you, Lisa. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. Know you guys got to go to bed. You guys is too tired. I understand. I know you guys hanging in there. Lady Tech says love. There's love back. Appreciate you, Lady Tech. Sandra says yes. Appreciate you, Sandra. Says wow, that's good. Lisa says don't say the vax at all. Yeah. Well, I've already, you know, YouTube is so biased. It's crazy how biased they are. Lisa Julian says, what happened to Prime Minister? What happened to the Prime Minister? Oh, you must be talking about that Japanese Prime Minister. I heard allegedly he was against the New World Order. He wasn't going along with their plans, and they sent in a operative to kill him. That he wasn't going along. That's why I learned that actually from Alex Jones' site called Band.video, by the way. And I got a thorough, and I shared that with another friend who's actually part of that culture, who's related to that culture. And he said it made sense to him, because he said he was wondering himself why they killed that the Japanese leader. But that's what I heard. He wasn't playing baseball. So that's why I don't dismiss. Not everybody that works for the government or these agencies, dismiss them. Try to network with the ones you find out are good, but also learn to protect them if they, because some of them can't be public. They need to stay invisible or private if they're working for good, because there's too many minions. The swamp needs to be drained drastically. That's the problem in the first place. It's too many. It's gotten just too bad. You know, it is for what it is. Lisa says behind, yes. Someone read this comment, says, okay, I can't keep the eyes wide open anymore. Great show, and I would love to catch up on a private console. I really enjoyed the chat. One last thing, many things are happening behind the scenes, just like the roaches. Yes, I definitely agree. Sandra says, yup, a lot are Zionists, the bad Jews That's not the good ones. Heard a lot feed from the Nazi to Ukraine. Heard neo-Nazis there a lot. War as far as too. Yeah, I could touch on that as well. I had information. I actually shared some of the photos on my Instagram that mainstream media wouldn't share because they don't want to talk about. A lot of people don't know the history. I won't go into that right now because some of that also creates division, and they want to create division through divide and conquer, and that fits into their plans as well. When you do go along with that, that fits into their plans when you go through the divide and conquer, by the way. So that's just something to keep in mind. I won't touch on the situation dealing with the Ukraine. I did before in the past, but there's other information, by the way, but that could be offensive to some people. I know everybody, ethnic group that is, part of their family, but some people are being misled and have to understand NATO is the same NATO that went into Libya that killed Muammar Gaddafi. By the way, he was starting to gold back currency for Africa. Mighty funny how this is tied in with the banking system, because you guys are wondering, hey, Dorsey, you getting off track. No, this stuff all tied in together. These cabal people are behind a lot of this stuff. This is how I'm connecting the dots for you guys. I'm explaining how I'm kind of not a spoiler alert, but I'm going into details to help you guys research how they're involved. But this NATO, who was involved with the Ukraine situation, they were also involved with going in to kill Muammar Gaddafi in Libya as well. So I'm just keeping it sum up, but I don't touch on that. But yeah, I'm aware you are on point about the neo-Nazi flags. There was a faction, but MSNBC actually did an article online that talked about that separate battalion group that was a neo-Nazi group that was part of the Ukraine army. But they wanted to push a certain narrative, and they basically want to choose a certain winner between the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. So they wanted to dictate the consciousness, control the narrative over here in America as far as what people think, what side, because the United States is allies with NATO. You see, so of course they want to be on the side, but they're not telling you the other things they're doing behind the scenes, or how Russia was working with China because they had a problem with the Federal Reserve Bank, and they have their own currency as well. They aren't talking about that going into deep. See, the mainstream media, they'll talk about certain things, but they're not covering as in depth like what I'm explaining to you guys now. And some people had some of these same questions back in 2017 when I was invited to some of the private TDA calls. There was a sister out of Wisconsin on there. When me and the guy tried to explain, I didn't know as much as I know now back then. And she was asking, why are they hyping this thing up with Putin and Russia? But you guys can see now, but it's a much deeper agenda. And I was also informed the ruling class, the globalists, Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, they're connected to all of this too. So best believe. Sum up. Lisa says, frazzle drip, Hillary. I forgot about the frazzle drip, what that is. By the way. Sandra says, yikes, Hillary. Lisa Julian says, yup, cannibalism, yup, kuru, yup. That's what it was called. Yup, what I was talking about earlier. I couldn't remember the word. That's what some people believe. Yeah, she was suffering from kuru. That's a form of people that are in a cannibalism. In certain countries, they've done studies. They have videos on YouTube. They believe Hillary Clinton, when she was shaking, she was having those seizures. That's what they believe she was suffering from when I talked about earlier in the video, because allegedly they said on that tape, that laptop that Anthony Weiner had, that the NYPD police seized some years ago when they found out. This is how they got the case started with Jeffrey Epstein, and they connected similar how they take down RICO cases, drug rings. They did an investigation and saw Ghislaine Maxwell, because all the evidence was on Anthony Weiner's laptop. But remember, Obama's Attorney General Loretta Lynch covered up the investigation because she threatened the NYPD police that if they did a press conference, which they were planning on doing, she was going to bring up charges with Eric Gardner, just similar how they're using the Breonna Taylor situation as leverage, kind of like why Russia took Brittany Griner, the basketball player, and is using her as leverage to negotiate two people they have over here that's locked up and things. So that's how each political party, they're basically playing chess with one another, things using, political strategies and stuff like that is much deeper. A lot of people don't understand, but that's where they got the evidence from. So it was rumored that allegedly there was a video, if you remember the guy Tank that used to have that Truth Show, and he had a YouTube channel. He talked about this too, where it was being alleged that some people got a hold of it, that it comes from Anthony Weiner's laptop when they decrypted that information
and it was in the hands. But the NYPD police, of course, had turned it over to the FBI, and I heard they made copies of the information they had, and they basically, there's people that kept copies. Some people they actually killed. I heard they killed some members of the NYPD, some FBI agents were killed. I don't know all the details, but it was very deep. But it leaked out there that there was a tape with Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin scanning this girl's face. So some people believe when Hillary was having those seizures, when she was running and she was shaking and having those convulsions, she suffered from Kuru, which is caused by people that are involved in cannibalism. Because David Icke talks about these things in his books. This may be too so esoteric for some people to handle, but I know some of you guys like when I talk about this will be in the X-Files, and when I start the separate chapter, by the way, of my other channel, because I know some of you guys wanted to know this type of information that deals with the occult, the Illuminati, the Masons, the secret societies, the rituals they're involved with, and the adrenochrome they use when they kidnap children and sacrifice them in certain rituals. They say the Queen of England allegedly has been at these rituals, etc. They're also Nazis. Their family was close friends with the Nazis and the Hitlers too, by the way. Remember, some years ago, they got mad at a tabloid that put out information that had actually showed the former older members of the royal family doing Nazi salutes, by the way. Remember, they were going after the tabloid in England that showed that information. So think about that. Why were they mad at the tabloid for exposing that information? See how I'm giving you guys context behind what I'm telling you, so you guys can see this is not just hearsay. I know some of you guys follow, you guys watch the news and remember these stories, even from the independent media. Now, some people don't follow the independent media, but it's out there for people to research and investigate. So you guys know I'm not just talking off the top of the head or making this up. You guys have some meat and potatoes or context to go back to, because I gave a disclaimer to research and investigate the information that I'm going over. But that's what that is. So thank you for the person that put that in the comment section. Lisa says, you can have live chats on Telegram and do a private pay. Yes, I found out about that. I also have Zoom too, and I hadn't really used it like that as well. And I have the paid version of Zoom. It says, yes, fan, I like to. Sandra says, no, he loves me. He loves. Okay, I read that. Okay, me not is a blood sacrifice thing. It's bad. Yes. Thanks. I'm on Telegram. Get on Telegram channel. Love it over there. Tons of stuff. And you know what? I was considering starting a Telegram, by the way, because I know some of you guys brought that to my attention. So I'll look into that. I have to look into that. It's supposed to be real simple, by the way. So that's basically it, guys. I've gone for quite a while. I can't see the time. This video, I know it's been streaming for quite a while. Oh, actually, I've gone over 3 hours. I think this is a record for me for StreamYard, by the way, because with the free version, they only allow you so much time, by the way. I also will be working from the other platform. So in case something happens over here, remember, I'm working with Lady Tech. If you want to set up a consult, ask specifically. I have a separate intake link for her platform over there. I just have to link my PayPal information or my other payment information. She can set that up to the platform that she has. It's the new thing I'm going to be doing. Consults are now mandatory, and I'm no longer doing a half-hour consultations. They have to be an hour, and the minimum starting at $100 at the minimum. And that's where I can answer questions that pertain to status correction. I know the remedies to how to stop your federal, state, and city taxes. By the way, I know with paperwork, I can show the laws to prove what to do, the steps. These are some of the things I know how to do. I haven't discussed that much. Also know other remedies that will help you get on the do not detain list. And another way to check to see if you're on there, there's different levels. On one particular level in particular, that's very important. A lot of people skip over this particular step. And some other different types of remedies and things I'm working on putting courses together that will be done privately for those that are interested, that want a subscription or want to pay for that. You know, just message me down the road. If you have any serious inquiries, you want me to, we're working on getting that started, you know, real soon, or maybe down the road. I can't say when, but I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you posted. But remember, you guys have to be able to support the channel, because that's going to help with the infrastructure, the documents and things that are in place. But once you become a member, I have the intake link, and I'll be able to send you guys that information over, and I'll be able to go over from there. Well, thank you guys for spending the time out. Those who stayed loyal to the channel, that special shout out to you guys. I appreciate you. If you want to follow me on social media, it should be in the description box at Dorsey's Resource on Facebook, on Twitter, I'm on IG, aka Instagram. I'm also on True Social. I'm also on minds.com. I'm on Brighteon. Brighteon, I haven't uploaded anything, but Rumble, I am on rumble.com. Remember, get on these other independent platforms. So in case anything happens over here, I also have a backup YouTube channel, Dorsey's Resource Channel 2. And that's where I go do commentary over there, and I'll be able to discuss some other issues. So in case, I get a strike over here, I won't be able to upload for a while. Just saying, so you guys will know where to find me. Until next time, the marathon will continue. Real legends never die. They live in our hearts forever. I'm out. Peace.